kind of have one of those wake up middle of the night, kind of like those checking stuff. He says mathematically everything's fine, but he wants to add some stiffness. Get back. It's called the
second. Right.
He told his bosses,
So we'll go ahead and start.
we gotta do this, and they said, hey, we'll make it right.
I bet there's some folks up in Baltimore right now. What do they call those bumpers that they put out?
You see where they had another one that lost power?
Oh, yeah,
The big round ones they put out, they're kind of the standalone, I think they call it Elephant Islands.
yeah, something like that.
And then I've seen them where they curl around the actual.
They kind of funnel you into it.
They funnel you into it, they're just bumpers. They're just impact bumpers.
There was a guy on the news the other night that was from somewhere, maybe Chesapeake Bay or something like that, that was saying that he's one of the operators up there, and he said that normal spot right there where that boat hit normally has 2 tugs that got him. And they said he stayed up there every day. He said, why there wasn't no tugs on that one got him?
Because the cargo carrier pays for the tugs.
So it was.
And you got to have the pilot.
But you don't have to.
But you don't have to have the tugs, and the tugs for a ship like that probably would be $50,000 or $60,000 to move it mile high or monitor it for a mile high.
You don't see them on all of them coming into Savannah.
No, it's strictly up to the risk that the.
But them big ones, them great old big ones coming into Savannah, most of them got tugboats.
I told my son when he called me up the next morning, he's like, you seen this? And he was asking me, so what do you think is going to happen? I was like, thank you. After 6 o'clock this morning, everybody got a shipping report or inspecting what they can and can't do to protect that. And number 2, they finding out what every tug in the United States is right now because they can start making that mandatory.
That's right.
Well, that's what Debbie, we were talking about it, and I said, you don't understand. She said, well, all we got to do is take those ships to. I said, Debbie, you don't understand the logistics of this. I said, when that ship is loaded in China, they know what order them connexes is in. When it goes to Singapore, they know which ones they're going to take off. When it goes to the Philippines, they know which. I said, when it got there, there's an order to what they're doing. I said, it's just like a railroad. And she said, what do you mean? I said, do you think it's just haphazard that they back up there and hook to them cars and then open the doors to see what's in them?
Yeah, that'd be like taking, that's like, that's where we put, those mini X's in containers and shipping all over the world.
None of us that are around it, not around it, realize how big those things are. When they go past you, it blocks us up. They keep going to it. It just keeps on. It's an eclipse when those things go. The thing, we were down at St. Simon's like a week after that auto carrier.
Yeah, turned on.
Which left without a pilot on it.
Yeah, it did. And that didn't happen no more.
No. In fact, I guarantee you somebody lost their master's license.
Well, Kia lost a lot of money.
That was all Kia they did.
It was mostly Kia and then things that when they finally cut some of them out of it. Lord.
No, this is the part I know. The biggest aggravation of his life was knowing that thing was laid over on the side. In his mind, you ought to send some boys down there and take the tires off all of them. Good tires. Who said that? I have an uncle that in his mind, it was like,
Ain't that like a cable to me?
I mean, it's just like, I don't care if it's easy to run or not. They put some guitars on my vehicle.
It should have been during the 70s. It should have been during the 70s in the Broad River.
Yeah.
I know some boys that would have took the car.
Yeah,
There used to be more transmissions, motors,
luckily it was.
alternators, seat side of cars between Hull and Elberton. They had that railroad track.
I'm gonna
agree with your uncle. I thought
I mean, it's not wrong. A lot of good parts in there.
Yeah. I do deal with Alan and now, we got a truck up there the other day, and I said, I want to get that truck out right there and carry the load company crushing. Insurance paid us 4 years ago. First, I want to strip it. They said, what do you want off of it? The insurance company doesn't pay for it. I said, insurance company paid for the truck. They didn't pay for the parts on it. Get the parts on it. What do you need? I said, I want the transmission and motor out of that and get the rear end out of that.
Part of it.
Yeah.
All right, well, we know Commissioner Lay's gonna be a little bit late, so. Y'all wanna wait on him? We know it's gonna be 3:45-ish. We can go ahead and start.
Wait 45 minutes, I might go to sleep.
Come on now.
We'll take me there.
We can say it's pretty weak. So I guess we'll start off with, well, first of all, I appreciate all you gentlemen coming today to Madison County Board of Commissioners, April 8, 2024, 3:20 p.m. for a retreat to discuss ongoing projects that we've had laid out here for 6, 8, 10 months, and give some status reports of how to move forward, questions and answers back and forth. Christina and or Mike will probably do most of the narrating of this, or certain topics I've asked Mike to look at. He's going to feel probably more comfortable with that particular topic, and if there's anything Christina can add or I can possibly add to make it a little bit more enlightening. First off, I got to, as I always say, I got to thank Christina for putting together such good folders, because this is as up to date as we know, and some of these folders hold questions that we don't know how to move forward. We felt like this was going to be best to do it in this setting versus publicly, because it looks like our public meetings are ever growing longer, and that's the last thing we all want. So, again, appreciate you for being here today. Christina, you want to start off on the county funding?
Sure. So, same as last retreat, I wanted to start with the county funding, and we'll roll into the budget process. So, as we go through the topics for discussion, I figured you kind of want to know where we're at financially. So, on your first folder, Ms. Susan Payne put together some breakdowns. The top sheet is bank balances. So you'll see what we have as far as general funds, 911, our investments, food bank, escrow, ARPA, which that's been depleted, SPLOST, T-SPLOST, and our debt service.
So the ARPA is in the general fund account?
Yes. So that first number, the $19,203,000, that is our general operating budget. So that's what we're running our day-to-day operations off of. And then the other breakdowns are specifically dedicated to other accounts and other projects. And then as we go through the sheets that Ms. Payne gave us, this next sheet is a fund balance, so that breaks down that $19 million. And in this breakdown, there are audit numbers. So like where you see that second little paragraph, the general fund balance, restricted, committed, assigned, reserved, those are broken down in that general fund budget specifically for certain projects. So like the second line item, $830,000, that's for capital purchases. That number is large. The large numbers in that are for EMS. A lot of that's for stretchers and their Lucas systems that sit into the side. Every year y'all put money back for those purchases, and there's still some purchases for the rec department in that money. The $998,000, that's what we've got for the fire training facility, and the other numbers come from the audit. And they will be here next week.
Auditors?
Yes, auditors will be here next week.
So just to clarify and make sure I understand. So that MBS Securities Investments, that's that $10 million in those CDs, right?
Yes.
We had
And it rotates.
It re-ups every quarter by signature.
Yeah.
2.5 matures every 3 months, and that 2.5, before it can go back in the pot, I have to sign for it. Georgia is unlike most states. Most states, it just is automatic renew. This one you don't. This one you got to authorize.
But that means that at any point, though, 2.5, we could just automatically pull it off with no.
Correct.
We don't, with no penalty or whatever, right?
There's never really a penalty, unless you are down to your last 2.5 and you pull it early.
Yeah.
You may have a small one. But
Okay.
because of the maturity, once it matures the first time, you're good. Just an update that we don't have here, because it happened Thursday. We had the Zoom call. It is time to renew another quarter. At this point, we have achieved somewhere around 330,000 in the interest over the past. I think our total balance at the end of 12 months will end up being about 540,000. So it was a really, really good investment. Now, emergency alert.
The security, they can access all the phones.
Okay.
Probably just noticed it's the sun went down.
Yeah.
Rapture.
It's a coming, I'm ready.
So we are talking about potentially, Susan's looking at some numbers, because what I'd like to do is, you see that operating balance. The way that our money comes in and goes out, it looks like we normally have around 4 to 5 million that never gets touched. Because by the time you cycle through the bills, by the time you start getting down to about 4 or 5, well, then the new tax collections start coming back in. So we are going to look and try to get with the auditors and see if we do have a revolving, 3, 4, or 5 that just sits there unclaimed, and maybe move it into this same pot, because right now you're drawing about 5.4%. When 2020, we know we was drawing 0.025.
Well, that was one of the things I was gonna ask is, so, I know we gotta have contingent funds, so those in that we got in the investments are considered contingent funds,
Correct.
right?
No,
They're not, or
they're,
you can't do that then, okay, that's
they're
what I
pulled
want to
out
know.
completely separate from that number.
Okay, so you can't, because it's tied up in something, you can't use it as contingent fund. That's what I wanted to know.
Yeah, so like our fund, like the next sheet, we'll talk about, or that rotating number is, that fund balance number reserves is projected at 5.7.
Okay, all right, I got you.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood it. She's right, yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I was just wondering if.
The way the auditors look at it.
Yeah, because,
Pulled out separate.
I figured that was.
I think, just for, what I'm proud of about that is knowing that we just achieved last Thursday at 337.
Yeah.
By making that move, we actually, First Citizens technically built and paid for the EMS station in Colorado. That's clear money.
Yeah, and I don't have any issue with it. I was just trying to understand it, to see if there was an opportunity to increase that and still meet with the requirements for contingent funds, but if it doesn't meet, then I understand that, then it becomes a much more complex issue to make sure you got the contingency. I understand.
All right.
Thank you. So, go ahead.
What I was gonna ask, I noticed that we've got the fire training, we've approved $1 million for the 2024 budget. We're fixing to begin the 2025 budget cycle here. Do we have any departments who have requests for capital projects or capital purchases that have not been made yet?
No, sir.
The only thing that I know of is property valuation. They're wanting to buy that big printer.
Yeah. It's like $6,000. It's a plotter, because we don't have a way to make prints.
Big print.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have a way to make a copy of the set of prints, and they said they have a plotter.
A big one, yeah, because it takes a big one to make those.
At least do 24 by 36, you know.
Well, and I'm not, and please understand, I'm not picking on the rec department when I say this, but, for a couple of years, our procrastination on making capital purchases was carried over, and it cost a little bit more,
Yes.
and a little bit more, and a little bit more. Well, before we start the budget process for the coming year, I'd like to see that stuff off the table.
This
So we
year,
don't talk about it anymore.
and just so you know, we made preparations, and this is the first time we've done it, or at least since I've been here. December 20th, we lined out the purchase agreements for the total purchase of whichever equipment was out there, so we could pull the trigger December 25th to get it on order, so we could have it here the first week of January, so it was off our books. And that's how we did it. Now, some of the rec department stuff you're referring to, they were ordered at the end of December, so they would fall under the 2024 budget line. Some of them has came in, some of them has not. There's some back orders out there, but they should be cleaned up before we ever get past this next budget cycle.
Okay.
But you are totally correct. We did procrastinate a lot of times, and it cost us money.
Well,
Yeah, we're no longer doing it.
okay.
Sorry, Derek.
No, that's fine. On the securities and investments, a couple of questions. What is our timeline on, either renegotiating or re-asking for that?
For which one? You talking about the First Citizens?
Yeah.
Okay, we are in our third quarter. So it'll be back up for a total renewal. 12 months will be in July or August is when we opened that. But again, 2.5 is what matures every 3 months.
So, right, but this can't be I mean, I understand getting the new money, but,
Yeah.
you know, in fairness to other institutions, locally especially, you
Yeah.
know, we need to be able to set a stage to say, we're gonna ask for this again. You know, best
You're
man still,
essentially gonna put it out.
best man still
That's right.
wins.
You're gonna shop a market.
Yeah.
That'll be in
So
August.
we should be able to articulate what our expectations are,
Correct.
not just
So that last
that it's
quarter,
forever and ever, no touching.
you're
So-
correct. The last quarter is when we'll do that.
Right.
And
So-
the last fourth
So the
The
rate,
last quarter,
of the year.
calendar year or the fiscal year?
Of August.
In August. That's how, we run it, it's whenever you open it. If you open it in May, it ends in May. So that last quarter, before I sign that document to re-up that last 2.5 is when we'll stop the game, shop,
Okay.
and come back.
so in that 12-month period, when we did it in the past, the rate that we received was guaranteed for that 12
months.
months. So then again in August, then we'll go back out and work with who, and then we'll be guaranteed a rate for that. So that's subject to change depending on what.
You'll get a little better rate if we'll go out 36 months instead of 12, but because
I'm just talking about the rate based on even 12.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
gonna be something different, but it's guaranteed for that 12 months.
Yes,
What
sir.
they did last, okay.
All right. The other question I had on the interest, whether it's on our sheet, it's just 263, you know, I realize it's, you know, there's probably a little more, but are we rolling the 263 back into the interest-bearing account, or are we siphoning that off to be placed in, general fund operating dollars?
Now, we're leaving it in it, just because that's pulling the 5.4, where our general operating fund pulls about 2.7% interest. So right now, we're trying to keep it wherever the highest interest rate is.
So that's the case, we'll be looking at 11 million.
If we kept,
If you leave it in there and don't pull something out, you'll be looking at 11 million.
It should be close to 10,540.
by the end of the year, 540,000 is what.
That's what you'll make
The
over a
interest
12-month
that we got.
period.
Okay.
Because it's running about 5.4. I think that's what our locked rate was, 5.4.
So that 263 is.
It's a half a year's worth. 263 is a half a year's worth of our quarter.
So I say we just will be entering the third quarter.
That was quarterly amount, that's all right, I got you.
But,
That's about 130 a quarter, something like that.
so that's something we need to determine whether, do we want to use those funds, or do we want to roll them back in and have more there? I guess that's something we.
You can keep it even 10 in if you want and just pull the 5.4 off.
Well, that's what I'm saying,
general
depending
fund.
on whether we.
But if we do that, then we're gonna take that 5.4, put it into an account, it's only bringing 2.7, why not leave it in the?
Yeah, but unless we wanted to do something.
Oh, sure,
with it.
sure,
That's
sure,
what I'm
sure.
saying, that gives us an opportunity, that's $500,000 to do something with if we decided there was a project that we needed to do or something.
But it was my understanding that at the end of the quarter, when it rolls over, we can pull
You can't,
the interest out then
We could.
with no penalty.
you can't.
So.
We just chose not to because we were so strong.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is a 90-day cycle for us to make a decision to do something is, we'd be lucky to do that.
Well, I know, but I'm talking about at the end of the 12 months though, going into the new budget.
But I think they're assuming you're still gonna ladder them quarterly.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll get into some projects in here that, right now, we have such a good cushion in every aspect.
We don't need to do
Yes, that, right now, that we could use those funds, even in the projected funds, to pay for a few projects, or while we're good, we can just set it right there and set, and draw the highest federal interest rate we can let it get to right now. And that's the sort of the game I'm playing, is I don't really want to just keep scrubbing off the extra pennies off the top when I can draw the higher rate as long as I can. Now, had we sat here and talked about a budget that was what Brian and them came into and Anthony Dove looked at, yeah, we probably won't be pocketing as much as we could, but.
Yeah, and the only point I made with that is that if there was something that we felt that was urgently to do, there is a possibility for more money.
Oh, absolutely.
We have a fund balance, a good fund balance.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's just that it's additional there.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
While we're at this point in the conversation too, our reserve funds, which is, at the end of the day, is county as part of that, we are not in excess of what we're supposed to be holding.
Not right now, but by the end of the year, we will be.
That's a good question for Mike. When the county has pulled money out and put it in bonds like that is separate from your fund balance, your reserve balance. Does that 10 million, is that still considered through the state law as included in that percentage for your fund balance reserve? That, you see what?
I see what you're saying. Well, I think it's still considered part of the reserve, but there's never been a law that caps your reserve.
That's correct.
Accountants used to give us, what's that?
It's a suggestion.
It used to be a suggestion to not have more than 15%, but after the recession in '08, I understand, I'm not a CPA, your brother is, you can ask him, but my understanding is that rule has gone away. You no longer get management notes for excess fund balance. Is that what they told you?
That is exactly right. Now they've moved a threshold from 15% up to about 35 to 40 is the suggestion.
Right.
Is a suggestion, but there is counties in Georgia that is carrying 100%.
Yeah, we can get the auditor's recommendation too.
Yeah.
That would be, because at the end of the day, I know everyone hears and reads the same thing. Why are my taxes going up? Why are my taxes going up? And without the information that was just shared, we could have a bunch of folks saying, well, why are our taxes what they are? Not that they're going up. Why are they even where we're at? So that needs to be something that I won't say we need to publicize, but the public needs to be aware of how we are managing their money.
Mm-hmm. I think that brings up a good point. When you go into the next few pages, there's balances for the 2014 swaps, the 2020 swaps, and the bonds, and T-swaps. So the fourth or fifth page is for T-swaps, and that is what we received for January, February, and March is higher than what we projected to receive.
Yes.
So we were only projected to receive like 215 to 220,000 a month, but even those numbers this past few quarters, you can say, they're more than, and I think that's how and that's why when we get into the millage rate discussion, there's a handful of staff that are figuring numbers. That is what's so hard, because you've got so much new that rolls in versus what you've got to have, what you're projecting to have.
And unfortunately, we're just, without at least somewhat strong reserve, and Mike's known this because he's been here the longest, it only takes a few bad rainy days and you're upside down. Because we do
about rainy days.
Yeah.
Specifically, right?
Yeah.
Well, in one of the sheets she's got, it says fund balance 331.24 at the top. Less 3 months expenses run $7.5 million.
Yeah.
So truly, we're only at about 5 months worth of operating with all our eggs in the basket, with all the reserve.
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of counties now is carrying a higher reserve, because they want to get to 10 and 12 months worth of operating.
Right, because if the economy goes to.
Yeah. And we're in a scary time because we're just happen to be on one of those election years. And it's liable to be fine, and it's liable not to be. And the part about going public with the information is for the people that understand their personal checkbooks, they might not argue back with you, but for the ones that don't, they're gonna think anything above $1 that you got in the account, your rate you should get it back. But Mike's weathered those storms where this county borrowed money to stay open.
That's right.
Some surrounding counties still borrow money to stay open. We're fortunate enough that we can actually have this conversation, because before these conversations wasn't like this.
Yeah, our funds are so housing dependent, again, the recession taught us that, and, you know, valuations run at least a year, maybe more, maybe 2 or 3 in arrears, so.
Yeah.
It's going to be a long storm for the county if there is one.
But when we have, I think it's, we run a $1.5 million debt service to the bond every year too.
Mm.
So that's hard for the public to see. That number's sitting in the bank, but you don't realize what it's allocated to.
Those dollars are encumbered.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a sinking fund, isn't it?
Yeah.
But besides the math you're seeing today, which granted, welcome to pick them apart, look at them, please get a good understanding of them. But the only thing I could say more to that is, and I'll be brief, is to tell you that if anywhere you go right now, any department, direct department, equipment-wise, vehicles, tools, maintenance, EMS, sheriff's office, right now there's more new equipment in the county today than there's ever been, ever. And the raises are the best they've ever been. And we still have this topic. So this board of commissioners has done a good job, along with the staff, of getting us to where we're at. But no, we're not sitting on a pot of gold, but we can at least afford air conditioning.
Another thing I do want to point out, just because I know it's coming up in May, we're doing a sealed bid opening for the T-Plus project. So you'll see our remaining budget, our current budget right now for T-Plus is 2.1 is what we have. So by the time that, we still got 2 months before we even award that bid, and then we'll pay that project out until it's finished. So this is kind of how we were, where we was at last year when we went to award that project, was about what was in the bank, and then it cycles out. We're running on a base schedule for what those projects are.
Just one, I noticed on the 2014 SPLOST, we've got a little less than $50,000 still left from that one. So I think under the intergovernmental agreement, 25.
25, got figured out.
Yeah, which just means whatever's left will go over into your operating balance, county's operating funds.
You know, Alan, if y'all work with Alan very much, you'll learn that Alan is a tight wad. He double checks before any purchase. He checks the account, checks the budget, checks the status, calls Susan, checks me, calls Christina, and then he goes back and tells me we ain't got no money for it, even though we might have money for it. And I say, no, go ahead and get it. He's a peculiar bird when it comes to spending money, but he can also make a dollar stretch further than anybody I've ever seen besides Bill Madden. So.
And then the last page Susan put together, Susan put together last week, all of our LMIG money that's been coming in. There's been several projects, just kind of a summary of that. And I know I've been putting that in the raise update to you guys too. If y'all have any questions, I have all that paper.
Or all of our departments tracking as they should by budgets that were established? And are we taking into account that we have, like the sheriff, and I'll divide, conversation's sake, divide the sheriff's office into the patrolling officers and the jail officers?
Mm-hmm.
Are they developing a surplus because of the number of employees that they're short?
That has been the case for the last couple of years.
Yeah, and so Jeff Vaughn does a really, really good job of monitoring their money over there. You know, in 2020, when us three came in, I sat down and asked Jeff an honest question. Mike can probably contest this, and these guys can too. I asked Michael Moore. I said, Sheriff, is your budget correct? You know, because they didn't give us no budget, so I was thankful. And he said, no, it's not. And I said, can you make it correct for me? He said, will you give me my budget if I ask you? I said, I'll do my best. Michael cut about $400,000 out of his request because he knew they played that old game where you ask for this, we're going to cut this. That's right. And I said, no. But what Jeff has done, Jeff tracks his money so well that they give us money back after they propose the budget. They don't burn it off. Not 1 year have they handed us on December 31st a balance of zero. Last year, I want to say it was $237,000 unspent dollars they rolled back into the general fund and asked for questions. This is all while still getting good stuff. But yes, the only way you can truly save money is normally short staff. But, boy, we are lucky to get along with the sheriff.
No, I was gonna say, that's such a credit to the sheriff and the board to have that kind of trust. I've been here at times when that did not exist.
We're recognizing that we essentially, we use part of our ARPA funds to I don't like the word supplement the payroll there, because all we did was bring the payroll in line with what it should have been. But I don't know how to verbalize that, but I think everybody knows. Do we need to be looking at that if he has surplus money because they have a shortage of personnel and can't hire there? Do we need to be looking at doing something outside of or doing a department specific? And I despise COLAs. I just really have a problem with those. But do we need to look at that for that department because they are so short, understaffed?
Is their pay scale out of line?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Is it time to revisit that while there's some monies?
I would tell you today, if Jeff was standing in front of us, he was going to say, well, we can all use more money. But I think Jeff's honest enough that he'll tell us the retention is not a money factor. Retention is statewide, it's nationwide, and that they feel comfortable that now we're in the pay area of our surrounding counties. We'll never be Jackson County, but we ain't at Elberton either. You know, we're above Elberton, we're above Oglethorpe, but we're not Jackson and we're not Hartwell. So I don't know that the money is going to be there. What we did do, and it goes back to this board and the decisions that was made in help with finances, we didn't look at that ARPA money as a one-time cost adjustment type bonus. We had to figure in how's this going to look 5 years and 7 years down the road if we know COLAs is coming behind it. And the money worked. We was able to sustain that initial ARPA money. But the ARPA money really for us, and me, Christina, and some of us, was the bonus to get out of the gate. Because we knew money was coming in stronger, but we couldn't wait as long. This gave us a way to get ahead of the curve. Hey, Bubba. Hey. So that's really all it done. It put money in their pockets quicker, but we'll be able to sustain that number. And as long as there's not a turnover between the finance department on that side of the road over there and this one over here, because if he comes to us this year in June for our budget and there's an X amount of increase on it, and he can justify it, and we feel like it's justified, fine, so be it, offer it. But right now, I wouldn't throw too many bones out there that's not been requested.
How far forward thinking do you need to be on this when the reality if the economy stays as it is, Madison County population is going to continue to grow, so service demands, particularly from the sheriff's department, rec department, and those type of services we provide, we know we're going to have to, at the road department, those are the big three. Well, EMS, I guess you can split that from there too. So just as population increase, you know there's going to be a considerable service demand increase there. So do we need to, or how do we need to be preparing ourselves to be ready for that? There's a couple, I just happen to note the kind of position I don't want us to be in. Athens Clark right now is about 50 deputies short. Making a bid is 300. And now, obviously that's a different scenario than we're in, but that's the kind of situation I sure would love for us never to.
Derek might be able to talk more about, because he's more Clark County background, because he's there every day. Macon bid, I'm not going to speak to Macon bid because I don't know their struggles. Clark County's is pretty obvious struggles. What the reality is, the firemen in Athens, Clark County, they're down 79.
Really?
Yes. They're changing the requirements of the job because they're getting less people to apply. So now they're telling you if you're going to be a fireman, you also got to be a medic. Well, the people that wanted to sign up as a fireman didn't sign up to be a medic. Well, they say, well, that's the qualification to work here. So they're making it a lot harder on themselves. And I don't know that that's the solution, but that's the road they chose to go down. For us, we are going to have a population increase. It's not going to be staggering. I think my mindset has always been, and you'll learn these in different classes over the years, and y'all probably already know what I'm telling you, is you got to have a 5-year, 10-year, and a 20-year plan. This county really never had that vision. We had a today plan and maybe next week plan, just historically, because there wasn't enough money to have that plan. But now if the money's starting to align, you can start making those plans. I think what surplus that we are ending up with in the end of the day, as those years comes, we just done a wage study across the board. I think we're good for about 3 years, and we'll do it again. But as long as that COLA keeps creeping, and I know that nobody likes them, but at least that's a measure equally to raise the bar.
Well, I think as the board could probably discuss too, instead of doing a 3%, doing something different, or doing something specifically for EMS and sheriff.
Well, we did. There were certain departments that got looked at as even in the COLA scenario. Some people didn't get anything but a COLA, but some people got substantial amount because they were so far out of line. Derek, you can chime in if you have any thoughts on this, Bubba. I'm just telling you what I know we are at. Financially, bottom line, we're tracking right. I don't see anything to disrupt that, even with growth. I don't see anything to disrupt it. We are going to have some infrastructure issues that's going to cost us some money. Now, they're not emergency issues of things failing, but more of just expanding our current system. And right now, we are trying to do that through grant dollars. We've already applied for 3 more. Because you're not going to pay for infrastructure off tax dollars, and you really ain't going to pay for infrastructure off water sales and sewer sales. It'll never happen. If we start talking about Carlton, the rock quarry, and creating our own water plant, that's $25 million to $50 million at least. That can't be paid for with tax dollars.
No, that's paid for with a 50-year bond.
That's correct. Yeah.
One thing, with the sheriff's department, and I don't want to get into weeds in this because I don't know that much about it, but the sheriff's department also has to deal with the fact that they provide all the resource officers for the schools, which the BOC supposedly pays for.
BOE.
Yeah, I mean, the BOE.
School pays for that.
But school pays for that. What has occurred, though, is that schools, that they don't have quite enough funding, so now they're taking all their, all their money-making things out there that require having police on scene, such as football games,
Right.
anything like that where they're trying to police. And so now they're starting to get those folks to contribute to that. And which is, I've had a lot of questions about that, and I thought, well, the BOE is paying for the school's security, basically, with that. But I know Michael has to deal with it, And then that's the other issue, though, that he has to deal with is, in talking with him, is they have to use the same folks. So these folks that are out there doing security, they're scheduling those folks, and it's sort of a off-time type deal. So this is another thing where they're making some money, but it's just things that need to be considered as we look into that. And I guess, we need to get with Michael and maybe let him come and talk about this and how it affects him as far as trying to cover that. And I don't know whether we as the BOC need to or want to do anything with that, but it's just another whole area that needs to be considered because we're using all the same resources.
Well, there's a caveat to that you touched on, and it's a true statement. We actually do fund part of that.
Yeah,
Because when the BOE hires the school resource officer to be in the school, he's paying that guy's salary.
Yeah.
And there's an allotment for his insurance and stuff.
Yeah.
But the truck he drives and the gas he gets there in, back and forth each day, the BOC funds that.
We are.
So
it affects us all.
It does, it affects us all. And when they have such a short pool, I've always said it's gotta be cheaper for the BOEs to look at a potential security system. Go to those guards, hire guards or something through a contract agency because they do pay pretty good. And that's why a lot of the officers wanna do that. Football games, a lot of times pays them a flat. And that's extra money for them. But how they got there costs you money. When I was thankful that Jimmy Patton is one of our longest employees, was at Trinity Church Easter Sunday directing traffic. I was proud to see Jimmy there. But when you're in a county truck buying county gas on a day off, you got to question that,
Yeah, when I rode by a couple of times, I wondered about that myself.
Yeah, and I get what Michael was doing. It's good for Michael. Michael lets his guys drive because it's good to have them out there and people see that the deputies drove a police car at the church, but he wasn't there for that. But I get the pros and cons of it, the PR part of it, but there is an expense. And $4 a gallon is a pretty good expense.
In Clark County, for what it's worth, the school district pays, they do pay an overhead fee per officer to cover those kinds of things in addition to the salary and benefits. And so Clark County School District, they have a combination of SROs who are post-certified and just security like you're talking about. So
Gotcha.
You use security where you can, you use SROs where you have to.
Well, our SROs, based off of my conversation with Michael Williams and with Sheriff Moore, we got a pretty strong SRO program, and they're well liked in the schools. The kids love them. The principals love them. I just don't know the math behind it because we don't see that part.
And I'm not being critical of any of it. I'm just saying it's just another consideration, and it does affect us because all that stuff is, whether we like it or not, it's commingled.
Yeah. And it's easier now, as we grow, if this becomes a two-high school county, then it's a whole different.
That's exactly. Yeah.
Well, it goes beyond, we talked a few minutes here about the schools and how it impacts those. But at the end of the day, we've had issues, repeated issues in my time here of security-related items at rec department events and things like that too, that don't have the same relationship or don't have a line item in their budgets for a security or a resource officer to be there. And at the end of the day, you probably have as many issues there as you do at one of our school events, particularly because the rec department too, and we have a double exposure there because our rec department is still dependent on the schools to provide facilities for them to use.
Well, that's a double-edged sword, though. So they do the same thing at the school. The schools use our rec department a lot more than you think. And you'll only get the school facilities, not picking on the schools at all, but you only get to put the school facilities when they don't schedule something. But now they are priority at the rec department. Like, we'll cancel our games or our practices because middle schools play on our fields. They don't play on their fields, and they'll tell you because we don't have lighting. Well, that's not our problem.
No, but
I don't want anybody to take it cross because I know we're on the record, and that's not my point.
But in conversation regarding security, the county still is exposed there.
Sure.
And the fact that the rec department is using another authority's facilities, all that does is just spread the names out in the lawsuit when it happens. You know, I mean, that's just a double whammy right there. You know,
More pockets.
that's right. You know.
All right, Christina, are we good on the county funding to date?
I think so.
Gentlemen, if we are, we'll move to the next folder.
On 2014 SPLOST, it looks like everything's been, we expended the funds in all the departments except the transfer station. Is there a plan for, I mean, is there an item that's out there that needs to be, this just seems like this could be
I know there's
a
equipment
little
that,
budget amendment, transfer it all to the transfer station and then.
It's fixing to clean up because we just finished redoing the chute over there. And we just haven't took the money out yet. We just, spent total between the chute rebuild and updating some equipment, probably $18,000, which will come out of that splosh for that line item. We're gonna get a new compactor over there, which will probably come out of that line item. So we can burn that line item off of just recent, like literally recent, like it's in 3 weeks, in the past 3 weeks. We just haven't allocated it yet. Not before this was printed.
And as long as you've done all your specific projects that were on your list, then whatever excess like that, you can just put it
It can
towards.
get absorbed.
Well, if it's after the five years after the collection period ends, you put it back in operating budget. But if you wanted to, typically what they used to do here, and I think most places, is you just put it over road pavement. Because you always need money there.
If you haven't
Is that what y'all
noticed,
did?
Matt Ring and Jason Ring went over and rebuilt all of our chutes for us. Yeah, they were 1/2-inch steel because it was pretty bad. They just was tore up.
Yeah, when we deem a project complete, whatever that balance is, we reappropriate it to
The correct.
another project
Right.
and just keep it moving.
That's right.
Yeah, it's just the general catch-all here has always been on roads and bridges.
Could the money that's being used to identify where the parameters of our former landfill trenches and all, can it be used? Can that money just come out of that?
you talking about where we dig the holes over, we're gonna move the.
Oh, the test wells?
Yeah.
Sure.
Where we're doing it right now, because we're doing it over there with the fire station and at the new road department.
We do have a boundary map for where the transfer station is, we found that one. But the one over with the, EMS, behind the EMS, we just go through the road department, we can't find one there.
There is no map. That's why there's no wells.
Well, that's what I'm saying,
Yeah,
can we use
that money.
Are
any
these test wells
surplus?
part of a capital project that we're,
Ultimately, yes, I mean, because you're gonna have to do the whole.
why are we doing them, I guess is the question.
Because we just have
We don't
one
wanna build,
established.
we don't want another fine finish building by building on top of a landfill
No,
again.
we're not doing that, I promise.
I guess my thought process, if we're gonna spend $20,000 or whatnot out of this here in the next couple of weeks, and then, unless they have something particular that they want to go get, then we do a budget amendment, move the road department, and put that on limit, it's just a close.
No worries. We'll take care
I
of it.
know it comes, drop feet, take fall, but that's a 2014 program that can be closed.
Actually, it should have already been closed.
Another question I had about SPLOST was based on, collections is, what's our expectation for the next SPLOST referendum?
Your projected collection?
Well, I don't recall, I know typically it's a time frame for our county.
Okay.
And so when will it need to be on the ballot, I guess is what I'm saying.
25.
Is it 25 or 26?
I don't remember, it's 26 years or whenever you had the last
So
one.
it'd be 26, because it was on the ballot in 2020.
But you can always, I mean, typically want to do your election, they say do it a year early, because if, on the off chance it fails, you can't have another election for another year.
So they're looking to do that next year.
Yeah.
So coordinating that, you know, I don't know, I can't remember, and again, I don't recall, but like the board elections, you know, that was lost, you know, so I just,
Yeah,
trying to plan ahead.
well, that's right, and you want to coordinate that with a general election. Well, not necessarily, and actually I saw one of the bills they passed changes the special election dates, I'm not sure exactly how, so, you know, you only have right now you have either 3 or 4 or 5 special election dates a year, I think.
Yeah, they eliminated, well, they were trying to add some
So,
extra dates, but I don't think that passed.
oh, okay.
We'll get with, Tracy Dan. I think we're preparing 25 to go into effect for January 26th, I think that's it.
I'll have to look at the SPLOST report, because I know what SPLOST and SPLOST is.
I think that's right. I think our current SPLOST began in July 20, maybe. Yeah.
All right, Christina?
So next on the list is the budget process. So in your folder, you'll see, the departments that we help fund or supplement funding outside of our general operating, but like our departmental budget, so we have the library health department, extension office, those items. And then the large packet that is stapled together, I kind of approached the board and said, hey, this is a policy and procedures that we don't have. So me and Lacey drafted 40-something pages for you. Me and Susan has reviewed it, and we have highlighted and made some questions and taken some stuff out. And so this is just the edited, drafted version. The chairman and Ms. Payne will need to sit down and kind of finalize a few of the details, specifically related to the budget process on when they want certain departmental budgets sent to them by, how that internally works, so the calendar responsibilities on staff, what's permitted. There's one section that we'll add from the ordinance in here towards the back. I think it's just our purchasing policy, procurement policies in here. So this is more in depth than what the ordinance is, and this was something that me and Susan had talked about. And Mike, maybe you can help clarify the difference between policies versus ordinances. So our ordinances is a vague outline, but this goes into, it's almost like an SOP for finance.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. This is great. I had not seen this before.
So, but this is based on our,
We've been holding.
it's based on our, but it's based on our current ordinances.
Well, a lot of it,
Because I know they're vague.
what, a lot of what's in here is state required for, like GASB.
That was
So
never written.
governmental accounting that we have to follow. It doesn't matter if y'all want to change, you can't change the rules.
Changed it anyway.
But we're one of the counties that just don't have a policy for it.
We never have had one.
So it's just kind of putting state laws into Madison County verbiage, adding some of our actual procedures. So if you have a new finance director, and anybody, a new chairman, new commissioner, whoever, you can hand in this whole packet and it should answer specific questions to the budget. And, you know, we get a lot of random things that come up where we're like, well, we don't really know how, we don't have a rule in place for this, and this gives you a rule in place.
Right.
Particularly in cases where what we may want to do is more stringent than what the state requirements are. I think that there was some changes this year made in regards to what purchases that require bids and things like that.
Okay, it didn't pass.
It didn't. That's good.
So another thing.
I watch the Atlanta News every night.
Yeah, it's very good. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So another thing in here, it's kind of like another thing that the board, that there's always something that's unattended. When we adopt this will stand into, like, so on page 2, a capital asset investment and management policy. That's something else that we don't have. Park County has those. But that is just a whole nother SOP that breaks down that whole capital project. Even in here for like the abandoned properties, that's between really Mike and Lamar handle all that. But if we have a process in place, we have a process for those excess funds of how property sold, how long you have to hold the funding, but it's not in writing anywhere. So that's what this does, helps put all those.
True. If it's not black and white, it's not.
That's right.
We'll get calls and we'll get attorneys that come to our office, and it's taken me and Lacey a few times to figure out, okay, this is specifically for Mike. Mike gets a hold of this, and Lamar knows. So we have an internal understanding on a lot of these things, and a lot of this is how we do stuff now. But
So do you have a preference as to whether this is a board adopted policy or rather a finance department manual? It could be either one.
on that was another question I had specifically for this, because I have another document that's twice as thick for this for the road department. This was for Derek. He had asked, I think it was probably the beginning of 23 or end of 22. We started on that, and I know the board talked the last meeting about guardrails. So there's like a whole section there about guardrails. It just answers. It just gives the board a lot of answers. So I don't know how that's a question I have for you. If this is something staff can do departmentally, or is this something that if Commissioner Doster doesn't like our capital project policy that we had, does this need to come before the board to implement? Because this doesn't need to be adopted as an ordinance.
No, it's not an ordinance, and I mean, and sort of course, our policies are in, chapter 2 of our code of ordinances now, which is fine, but, this looks, obviously, I haven't read it by detail, but this looks more like what I would see as being an internal manual, not a board adopted policy.
Well, that's good, because we're supposed to have one in place, and we don't. So Christina, again, this is all her credit. She went to the classes and come back and looked at me and says, Todd, we don't have this, and this. Oh, God, can you get it together? Yes. Okay, good. So this is what we have. This is why you're seeing it now. And unfortunately, it's this way in a lot of areas, but you already know that.
Just so I understand, and I know Derek's much more versed in the Robert's Rules of Order and things like that than I will ever be, but wouldn't it be logical that this would be presented to the board for approval, and then from that point on, it becomes official policy that the day-to-day management of it becomes the department's responsibility? Does that make sense?
Well, we would have to vote anyway for it to be a policy that we're going to follow.
Well, that's what I'm asking.
Not as an ordinance, but a policy.
Yeah, but that's
not necessarily. I mean, so your policy is going to contain things like your budgetary level of control, your purchasing thresholds, those sorts of things. But you're also going to have department manuals. For example, in Clark County, the CFO, the school district, the CFO has a manual for how to do audits of individual school funds. Those aren't things that, well, I mean, I guess at some level they connect with state law, but it's a lot more about internal procedures. It's not really discretionary choices. It's about just how do we get the job done. Does that make sense?
It does. Where I've seen, or I guess I'll say my favorite was a hybrid kind of philosophy is when it was brand new. I've seen some governments kind of bring it to the board, adopt it, and then it's adopted as an internal document. So if you've got a department head or something that wants to make a change to it, they can know good practices. They've notified the elected officials like this federal guidance has changed. We're changing it from the 2016 MUTCD to the 2023 MUTCD, and it's not a whole. It's just like changing plumbing, code.
But if the board approves it, I don't think anybody can change it unless the document itself. Within that document, the board gave the chairman, the department head, somebody authority to change it without their vote.
Well, the reason I say that I believe it should come to the board for approval, though, and not being disrespectful of any number of departments here, but we still have, number one, several departments of one person, and we also have several departments that are, for want of a better way to do it, are combined departments, which and picking on zoning, planning, code enforcement, animal control, I really believe that it should come to the board for approval, changes should come back to us for consent. But we wouldn't be dwelling on this every meeting, you know.
In the absence of that, what prevents it from the department head or whoever's out like this policy, so we're just gonna change it?
Well, that's the difference between policy and procedure. So this is, I call, you know, the manual, what I'm calling the manual is not policy, it's procedure or protocol, whatever other word you want to use. Again, it's not a discretionary choice, it's just how they fulfill the policies that you set. You know,
That's more like an SOP.
Yeah, SOP, it's a how-to.
Yeah.
But if it's not, forgive me, but if you have a department head that decides that I'm gonna just put this on the back shelf and nobody will know what I've done, then in the event it reaches the point where disciplinary actions required or up to and including termination, then it's gonna come back at some point to this group, and everybody there is gonna say, well, I didn't know we had that.
Yeah, I mean, you make a good point about it being so. As long as you have this, I guess I'm just looking at the present, as long as you have the strength that you have right now, and, you know, with Christina and Susan Payne, it would be fine to let them manage it, but you might not, the county may not always have that strength, so.
Thinking about hiring Christina anyway.
No, we'll finish amending it and bring it back for the board. And then this will be a document that'll be available online for citizens to see. It'll be on our website.
Does also, part of a requirement, wherever it needs to be, with procedures or policies, training of department heads in use of this. So where does that need to be stated?
So the parts that will be for department heads, this is what we'll discuss when we talk about the handbook. Those certain, like the purchasing policy, the travel card, the hotel, all where they spend their money, the budget process, that will be implemented in their policy handbook. Me and Tracy have talked about making a baseline handbook, and then depending on the type, if it's a department head position versus just a office clerk or a front desk clerk position, they don't necessarily, the clerk doesn't need all that budgetary information that the department head does. So either when we hire a department head, this would be, a great policy to give them to say, there's some information in here you need to know, but like where it talks about the audit and like some of that stuff that they won't need.
But is policies developed here though, particularly in hiring a department head or creation of a department head, that would be a tool that following policy and procedure would be a tool and an annual evaluation you would look at, and it would be a checkoff. You know, it's a 1 to 5. Do they do it? No, they never turn in credit card receipts.
Yeah.
You know, they use the company card to go get their child every day, a card to go get their child every day from school,
Yeah, and then what the policies revert back to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so then, if it were brought back before the board to challenge, somebody here knows what happened on this date, from then forward, that's the rules.
Yeah.
I perceive that as an area that we have left ourselves very uncovered.
Very much so. This is tremendous work.
Going to the next sheet here that I know may change, and this is the same sheet, county funding, budget process. She added a sheet with breakdowns of yearly allocations. The DA's office, public defender line item is $135,070. That may change. There may be an increase in that. There was some state law discussed. And then Judge Malcolm's retiring, and he's wanting to give out some raises before he retires. I got a letter here a month or so ago about him wanting to give a couple of judges a significant amount of raise as he goes out the door. It's not covered on the state side. It wants us to be covered on our side. Another raise, not a raise, but another allocation that does fall under public defender is the Warren Caswell that does the kids. Last year he come at us wanting $100,000. and, he ended up getting 1,000.
So that's it's a
It was a
district clerk.
it's a 5-county deal, is how it works on all of us. These guys are split between 5 counties.
And it was created right after COVID hit, to kind of help with that. And then it turned into that backlog evolved, and so that position evolved, and now that position turned into a more permanent position.
Yeah. And the COVID funding run out, and they want to keep them.
Yeah.
Either way, he come up with some kind of grant to get I think he ended up getting about 80 or 95,000 out of the 100 he wanted. He went to us other 5 counties, and we agreed to $1,000 apiece. But that's gonna be a negotiation of us counties again, because it's not fairly split, I'll tell you now. We pay more than we should, other counties pay a lot less than we should, it's got a lot more.
Are you talking about operations fundings for the court or judicial salary supplements, or both? Both, okay.
Both. So we'll have to cross that bridge when we get to it. I told them it was bad timing, because I told them you couldn't send me you know when my calendar is. Don't come ask me for money after I've already approved my budget, so. Either way.
I would just tell you, I would be hesitant to give, his exit strategy, I would be hesitant to give raises to people that are currently sitting in offices. When maybe the next person that occupied the office, the raise go into effect then. But if they're worth it then, they're worth it now, and they ain't asked for it.
That's right.
So I stumble on that, almost to the tune that I would stumble on us deciding to give ourselves a raise. I mean, it's just kind of, it may be legal, but
It ain't gonna
pretty
get,
damn unethical.
unfortunately, Mike knows this on the backside. I mean, and some of y'all may know it. I don't know how much state law y'all been following, but the last thing we ever want to do is vote ourselves a raise, but we're going to eventually be, us and several surrounding counties is way out of kilter with the state. And, you talk to ACCG about it, and you tell them that, hey, man, y'all need to fix it on your end so we can just follow the recommendation. And they're like, no. But it looks like a lot of other counties have been pretty greedy, and they've gotten themselves out of kilter. And,
Yeah. Well, there's 2 ways to change Board of Commissioner salaries. You can either get the General Assembly to do it, or you can do it by home rule, but it only takes effect when that term.
Correct. That's correct. But it's, a lot of these getting out of hand. And while we were talking about that policy stuff a minute ago, keep in mind the people that would follow that policy are probably the non-elected officials.
I think elected officials will too.
With some will, but they do have that option of opt-in, opt-out. Don't forget how important that rule is. Right. And they only opt in on the things they want to opt in on. They want to opt out on the other things that may concern them. So they have the right to do so. We're not going to go into that topic, but there's a way to fight it, but I don't want to fight it.
To get back on this again here, have we resolved our issues with the regional library and DFACS?
I have not seen a list of how they extended hours.
No.
That's, to me, that should be something that we require them to provide for us, as we discussed.
They provided a breakdown,
It wasn't near what the library wasn't nearly what we asked for.
and then
But we've never signed a contract either.
right, and so that's where we left
Ball's
off.
in their court.
You gave us the budget, but it's not enough, it's not sufficient, and you've given us a contract, but it's not sufficient. So Ms. Bell took it all, Ms. Valerie Bell took it all back, and she's supposed to be working on that. And then some other things happened with some funding. I don't know if that just kind of derailed that situation, but I can follow up with her.
Just to report back, I mean, I see the numbers and the like, and,
So you might want to just be, right now, it's good because we don't know, and they ain't getting no money. And just like DFACS. DFACS knows that they were overpaid, so right now they're quiet. They're not asking for none because they heard us say, y'all spend what we've already give you, and then we'll talk. But right now, it's probably a good thing. But it's not just DFACS. And it's not just.
Not accepting money.
Yeah. Yeah. The last gentleman that was here, they wouldn't
loosely the line kind of works.
yeah, we tried to send them a check,
Our
so we
meeting.
still get cut, and they said, no, we don't want your money
Okay.
until we get our problems fixed.
All right. But now on the library,
We're funding them.
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
But we've not went into a new funding.
We haven't got
cycle
a
with
new.
no new requests.
And all that's to be done, so that's what I'm saying, we can look at that.
Yes.
So you're going into your budgeting for next year pretty soon, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
so we gotta have it by June.
We need to get them, they need to get us what we want.
So since we're talking about budget process, that was one of the things in this policy that we highlighted. I highlighted for Ms. Payne and the chairman to decide, and the board, when do y'all want to start budget policies? I know when I come across them all, Rhonda told me there's a way that this happens, and then the way it was, and some of y'all were here versus how Todd's done it's changed. What do y'all want for the budget? Do y'all want to go back to coming in at 8 or 9 o'clock and it be a scheduled all day, or do you want to do in the afternoons, how I kind of schedule some in right before a meeting, and then some, I do 3 or 4 departmentally? How do y'all want that? How far in advance do y'all want that?
Well, I'll give my opinion on it. All right, so what I like about is meeting with, like, put it out there. They're gonna have to turn in a budget, okay? And so I don't have really a whole lot of problem with the chairman going through that and looking at it, whatever. What I like to do is those that turn in the budget and they come and meet with us, you know, and talk about what they proposed, talk about what their needs are, and if they got something special, we know about what's going on, okay?
Me and Denny had talked about,
And doing it in the afternoons was good, like, before meetings, maybe coming in early enough and get certain people to do certain days.
We've been doing, okay. Well, I know me and Denny, and let me know if I'm misquoting, if a budget request from a department is turned in, it's over a certain percentage of their current budget.
Oh, yeah.
If it's over 15% of an increase, that it's almost like they're automatically.
They automatically got to come and do it. But, I want it to be not adversarial, so I want to say, okay, you got folks, and even if they're turning in a budget that is the same as what it was last year, come and talk to us and say, you know, tell us what's going on, or what you anticipate maybe is going to change, or whatever, that you haven't budgeted. Or if they're going to come in and say, look, we're able to cut and do this because we streamlined something done, let us know that, and let the public know that they've done that too, because, you know, we're all in this thing together, and that's what I like to see. I don't want to make it so, I mean, we used to have, when I first came on, we had all these meetings where we would go all day long. I don't really care anything about that. I don't need to hear everything they got to say, but I would like to.
Reverse water.
Reverse to, have them come, and it needs to start in enough time to where we can cover everybody that wants to come and speak, and maybe do it in just 1-2 hour, you know, somebody's got an hour here, an hour there before one of our regular meetings if we can do it, and that way we ain't having to schedule a whole bunch of extra meetings.
So was you asking that based off of that policy? Because we gotta get a more fair contract policy about what we're gonna ask of people, what we're not.
Yes,
Because the reason I'm going there is because we just went there with the library, we just went there with DFAX. Now we got an issue with we actually got what forming up to be an issue with chamber. So if we're gonna say we need these certain things before we're gonna give any money, then we need a policy that says you need to produce X, Y, and Z, and then come talk to us.
I think that the last 10 years has snowballed to where we're at today. I think
Correct.
The county being in a situation, didn't have money to pass out. Now we have some money. People are wanting to ask for money. The way Rhonda and Ms. Kathy operated, their roles and responsibilities as finance director and county clerk, and then I moved across the hall. We had a new finance director come in. Me and Kathy got along great. With Susan come in, I was trying to help. I've taken on more of what that finance directors and county clerks, separating that role in the budget. Yeah. Because I don't know to what extent I need to be reaching out to the department heads saying, what does your budget look like? What do you want? I don't know that. I don't think that that's my current role to be in that. Because this policy kind of helps say, that department head needs to contact the finance director. They need to figure out who's coming, you and the finance director figure out who's coming to the board. You just tell me, hey, probate wants to come speak to the board, and I schedule it. So this kind of helps separate, even though me and Susan have that, we have that conversation, have that relationship, that's great, but when I'm not here, or Susan's not here, or Todd's not here, those questions are answered, whose actual responsibility that is.
Do we have a time, I mean, what we ought to do is come up with a timeline of when they need to have.
Yes, and that's in
A good
here
job
also.
last year they did, we give them a date.
But I mean, give them a date, and I agree with you on this, is about like the contracts, the ones, but those are sort of the outside ones, and then even if we have to do those, have those folks come in a public hearing, that doesn't bother me a whole lot. I mean, it takes up a lot of time, but.
That's in here, we had said something about May, we had said something about 90 days, but that's a section, one of the sections that's highlighted to narrow down. Okay, right here, so page 5, finance for budgeting, financial reporting, number 2, budget document, this is what it's supposed to on the website. But there's stuff in here highlighted for that Susan and Todd need to finalize, but they kind of need to know from you guys, how early do y'all want to start at the beginning of May? Do you want to go through budget hearings for 2 months before we adopt a budget? How many times do you want to go through a budget? When, even like when the rate department comes and they're asking all these questions, there's a whole lot of conversation that for staff to follow, to go back and change, because it's, I don't know how to say it, it's so vague in a public conversation. To us to try to interpret
it. It needs to be early enough to where they can come and talk to us about it. And just like we taught here, talk to us about it. And then go back, and because we're going to have recommendations, and we're going to ask questions, we're going to say, do you know this? If they come in here and they don't have a contract or whatever, we're going to say, okay, come back, you got this, and we got this. So it's going to have to be early enough to where we don't wind up being at the last doggone minute to do this thing.
Mike, do you have this copy, sir?
Yeah.
Look down that copy right there on the clarification email you sent me the other day, and how many of those would it exempt?
Wait a minute, which one am I looking at?
That one you got in hand. How many of those would be exempted from the way we do it today versus the way the law reads we're supposed to do it?
Right, okay. So you're asking, what do you have to fund?
And are legally can fund.
Yeah, the only one I see you have to fund is Health Department. Chamber of Commerce, you can't fund. You do a contract for services, but you can't fund them. Library, you can fund, you don't have to. Forest resources, what's that, forestry service? Yeah, so I think that's discretionary. Extension office, that's a contract for services. DFAX is, you can fund them, you don't have to. Mental health advantage behavioral, that's a contract, I think. ESP, again, that's like Chamber of Commerce, you don't fund them, you can do a contract for services with them. Health Department, that maybe when you have some obligation to fund. BOAS, that's the animal shelter. Yeah, there's an old contract that I guess we're still funding $3 per citizen, something like that.
But a lot of these here, I've never seen the contracts. So what we have to do is we got to get new contracts, because I know the one we have is already 3 years old or expired.
I guess it's just, I mean, for me, unless there's some type of automatic renewal on these contracts that we don't know about, for the life of me, I don't see how you go through an auditing process if you don't have documentation to support why you gave them money. You know, I mean, other than maybe your brother-in-law runs the animal shelter, so that's why they get $100,000 more.
But that one is an automatic revert. I mean, an automatic re-up.
Right.
But it is yearly, so it has a clause that you can get out. And I'm not trying to get out. That's not what I'm trying to do.
No,
but some of what I'm saying is the way they were written a long time ago, some of these are vague. We would ask different questions today. and where I'm going with this is lay down the list, but because we got it here. So I tried to get for you guys a copy of the IDBA budget. Not IDBA budget, the chamber budget. Because she stood in front of us the other night and said they're probably gonna need some more money. Well, good luck with that.
There's a case on that one.
Yeah, 'cause she's just flat told me I didn't get it.
Just handing the Chamber of Commerce.
You have the
money
documents
for
in
you
your
is an illegal gratuity. But, for example, I think the board and the IDA jointly contracted with the IDA a few years ago to fund one or more positions that had measurable goals they were supposed to reach.
Yeah.
But,
So, and I'm not just trying to pick on them. What I'm saying is we as a board, when they ask for money, we need to say, okay, are you meeting these requirements that we set forth so we can justify that?
And not just them though.
No, it's not just them,
I'm talking
it's
about
everybody.
all the departments here in this place. That's why I say, so it's gonna take some time. I mean, by the time you do this and everybody, it's gonna take time. That's why I said we need a timeline, and it's gonna have to start early. Some folks are gonna have to be up there pretty quick.
I mean, like, you know, and I'm just throwing, okay, if we were to say, May, you present your preliminary budget for review.
Right.
And that goes to Ms. Susan and Todd. 30 days, you know, they got 30 days to look at it, 30 days to question anything, send it back. Then they bring it back for us for the question and answer
That's
session.
right.
You know, because we don't need to be down there,
And
you know, painting the white lines on the
They have
wall.
worked out most of it.
Yes.
That's right.
Well,
Yeah,
that's why I think
and-
having a submittal form that we send to them in May that says, hey, the request is open, time for you to put it together, please follow the instructions below, we're gonna need this, and this provided.
Well, for me, and I go back to this in my conversation with Shelley and with Jennifer when she was at the Senior Citizen Center, the thing we need to be looking at is the potential number of citizens that we can be serving so that we don't have a situation where, well, the folks that signed up got all the spots.
Yeah.
You know, we got 55 kids that won't get to go, and they can't go to any camps. But we got some folks that are going to every camp.
Yeah.
That is that's a management issue right there that, I mean, forgive me, but it never should have got to us. I mean, there's got to be a better way to
That
sort out
policy
who
was
gets services.
put in place many years ago. The one she quoted the other day to us was before us.
Well,
But it definitely got to change.
Well,
I heard about it again today.
Well, the whole part of that though, and forgive me, I've been here 3 years, and I'm pretty damn tired of hearing that was put in place 25 years ago or 30 years ago. The reason we were put here is to straighten stuff like that out. And if we're not, then let's just rubber stamp everything, spend 15 minutes in the meeting and go home.
All right, I'm gonna do something real quick to help. You're right, you're 1,000% right. But I'm gonna quote Mike Pruitt, 45 days into 2021 when I took office. I called Mike Pruitt and I said, Mr. Pruitt, why is it every single document I read seems to have a hand grenade under it? Mike Pruitt's response was, quit reading, they all do. So that is a follow-up. No, I'm saying this as a follow-up as to we don't know what's badly written until we run across it. But I can say that when we do run across it, we do make a point to pull them out and try to fix them. And that's what CPL is doing for us now. We ran across them, we found the errors, and now we're fixing them. Unfortunately, until last week, I did not know there was a policy that said any different as far as the rec department goes, because we wouldn't have thought to look. But now that we know, I guarantee you we'll fix it.
Well, I'm gonna quote Mike Pruitt right now. He knows what I'm gonna say. You know, he ain't trying to get us to the 21st century, but we could at least ways get to the end of the 20th century.
And that's what I'm getting at is about, that we need to, just like you got the process and procedure, we need a budget. Like this is, and you've got part of it there. But that's what we need. We need to educate folks. This is what you need to have, and you need to bring to it. And like Dennis said, go here with y'all, the staff, and say, okay, we worked out most of this, then bring it to us. We shouldn't have that many questions or things, or they at least can explain why we got to where we're at.
Well, I
And
know
y'all know
y'all
more
have-
about it, and then it ought to go much smoother, and we shouldn't have these problems. So,
I'm gonna go back to your specific question on when we start stuff. I mean, I'm gonna answer it with, I prefer to us to have a budget so we can set millage, not set a millage and then make it
That's
fit
right.
backwards.
I think,
So from that point in time, whatever, and I'm gonna use staff collectively, what y'all feel you need to get us information, to present it, look at it, make comments, questions, Q&A, whatnot, and work it back. If you wanna tell everybody, you know, June 15th, have your budget here and you're gonna work 900 hours straight, and I'm just saying, staff is, you know, work it back to whatever you think is appropriate. And I say you, I'm talking about whatever collectively leadership needs to have it to us in a timely manner, that we can publish it, we can talk about it, and we're not killing ourselves.
And that's the correct way to do it. Set your budget before you do the other thing.
Yeah, we're talking about September 1,
But I,
or at least know what our millage rate.
Yes.
but I'll say this too, I think it also goes back to not just for the dollars and cents. Somewhere in January timeframe, whether it's a non-election year or people, new people sitting in the chair, I think the departments ought to have, you know, what the objectives are for that year and any new capital. You know, we might want to change their direction. They might not know that till, you know, somebody tells them. That's right. You know, I'm not saying that the sheriff's office mission's changing, you know, to protect and serve. But if there's a new initiative, if there's something that we need to be thinking about, not just come in here in September and say, hey, I need a new jail. Y'all are the tax people. Get me a new one. I mean, I know that's a little.
I think it's a really appropriate time to do that with the new SWAT coming in for 2 years.
One of the things that's often been missing from the budgeting process is what is the vision of each department of where we're gonna be 3 years and 5 years from now, which is just like what Denny was talking about, those programs of, that summer camp thing's a perfect example. And this is just a suggestion, if it were you know, thinking out loud, what I would think would work good if I'm a department head, or maybe if I'm even sitting in Todd's seat, is have one meeting, get all your department heads in, and say, look, this is how we're gonna do the budget this year. This is what I want all y'all to do, this is what your deadlines are. Give them an opportunity to ask questions about it. But part of that, for my benefit, needs to be the vision that you have, and then your budget request ought to represent how we're gonna get to that service vision that each department is.
I'm looking at pages 11 through 13 of this. A lot of these topics, including vision, are in this policy that Christine
Yep, the whole budget
created.
decision. Oh, and that's why I did it. It's just starting. We just don't have these, so it's just getting us started with something. There's a whole lot of information.
one thing that I sort of have advocated the whole time, and I did this even back in previous administrations had, was that we ought to have some kind of rotation the whole year where at least one time during the year, at some point, every department, and some of these folks, I know we get they come in and tell us at the library what they did, but they don't really talk about money things. Maybe they ought to include that in their meeting. But we ought to have each group come in and specifically talk about, this is what is going on, this is what's changing, and then that includes that vision too. So it's like Lamar comes in here and talks about that we need to change software and stuff like that, and it comes up. Well, he probably knows that I know he's talked to me about it back there in his office way before he ever came here. Well, maybe we ought to be talking about that on back 2 months ago or 3 months ago before it came up. At least he say, I don't have it together, but this is what we need to be going and go. And that's the kind of things I'd like to see.
Yeah, and I think Robin done a good job this year.
Yeah.
He headed that off with when the state changed their mandates. He let us know about 6 months ahead of time that I'm gonna have to have 2 more employees, we're gonna get 2 more trucks.
That's the perfect example.
Yeah, he done a good job with that.
And maybe, and I don't know how we get everybody sort of educated, or we just schedule them, saying, this is your time.
Yeah.
If you got any issues, are you gonna be looking at more money, or are you looking at these changes and all? you need to bring it up then, and don't wait, because if we hear it later on, we may have allocated that to somebody else.
Yep, and when the board, y'all, about a month or 2 months ago, that's what I started to do, and it's not as easy as telling them that y'all have been here.
Well, I know, I understand that. That's what I'm saying. I know it's not.
Some ain't gonna come like that.
Yeah, I know. Some of them ain't, but I don't, maybe they will.
Well, I
But I mean,
what helps
you got to explain, see, and I don't mind, I can preach to them a little bit. But if you want to do this and you need something, you need to tell us. Because I don't care, you can be in charge and you can do it any way you want to, but the money has got to come through this right here. And we got to allocate it to so many people, and everybody's wanting the same, out of the same pot. So if they want it, they're going to have to come and ask for it. Okay?
What has really helped?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I know, that's us, but that's what I'm saying, but I don't think, they just
I
need to
agree,
understand.
I 100% agree.
And we can't stretch dollars we ain't got.
So we've put in motion something that's worked for 3 years at least. We do quarterly meetings with all department heads.
The staff, you do.
Yeah. Me, Christina, have a department head or a representative if that department head's out for instance, elected officials. Most all of them come, including elected officials. And that's been a pretty good way to communicate with them. I ain't gonna say it's an overabuse, but they know my door's open and they'll come to me when they get an idea.
I'm glad they do that.
They do. It's 3 or 4 dots. I got it wrote down today. Katie, I've talked to Katie today, I've talked to Cody today, Jill today. And these are not normal day-to-day people, but they just come and say, I got a problem, I need to let you know something. Or what Katie come about, and Cody is, they was in judges conference last week, they wanted to give me an update of things that they start changing. So the friendship definitely helps, because they know it's wide open, but it also helps to know that they trust. If I'm out, Christina's got an answer. If Christina's out, Lacey's got an answer. So right now, we look good for us.
We're growing as a county, and it's a lot different than it was just 5 years ago.
The expectations of the people are a lot different.
Oh, it's a lot, yeah. And 5 years ago, it was totally different. I didn't have Stephanie Harvin over here asking me 1,000 questions or something.
Volunteer of the year. What do we call it?
I have not one.
I appreciate it. I just thought I'd take it.
But now I'm going to.
Thank you, Stephanie.
All right, moving on to the next one, future and ongoing county projects. Boys and girls, this one's fun. Christina.
So in your folder, the top sheet is a summary of what was approved last year at our retreat. And then under each one is, you have dates of, since y'all approved those projects, what kind of happened from there. There's a few of these that no funds have been allocated. During a BOC meeting, so our retreat was July 15th last year. BOC approved on July 31st the 5 project list, and they just approved just that list, they didn't allocate any funds. So we need to discuss, or we don't have to today, but it's coming up. We're working on the courthouse. We've hired Ethos. They're doing some work. We've had some studies done over there. When we get that report back, they'll have a projected budget construction cost, and then I believe that's when the board should decide what to allocate, what kind of funding we're going to go for, how we're going to move forward with that. Fire train facility, all of that has started. Those funds have been allocated. That project's moving forward. I do want to talk just for a minute about this year when we did the yearly fire allocation for the 1 mil. We dispersed that money, and each fire department, in the meeting, when they presented to the BOC, stated that each department would allocate $15,000 to go towards the fire train facility. And they pulled that $15,000 out, and they all put it in the association. We had some conversations with the auditor and Ms. Payne about us holding the money. They wanted us to hold the $180,000. Couldn't really do it. It was kind of sticky with the way the auditor, he didn't like the way that was. Anyway, so they have that. My understanding, and Todd can speak to this more, is where we left off with the minutes and the video, the $1 million, and what the board wants to fund past that. breaking down, Jackson Farm, Jason Austin, and Butch McDuffie are working on an SOP for that building. I will say, I went to the fire chiefs meeting, there's a lot of information that's gonna have to be in that SOP for that building. How it's accessed, the number of people that have access to it, the insurance liability, the operations of that building. I know Derek had spoke specifically to them about the association and them being prepared to fund that operation. So it was so vaguely, the BOC, you approved the $1 million, there was discussion of the 180, they're wanting to put their 180 into that project after we allocate our $1 million. But I believe they're gonna come back and ask for more. And I know some commissioners had wanted to give more or knew that there would be more coming. I don't have any details for that today. I just want you to be aware that that is. All that is moving, all that is rolling, but they've got bigger plans.
One of the questions,
Go ahead.
one of the questions I would ask along those lines is the dollars that they already get, their allocation of that one meal, how much of that would they typically spend on training that goes outside the county that now stays in, and would that just become what they would, part of what they would allocate to the training facility?
And I'm thinking, I don't want to answer those questions for them. I'd rather them give us, them answer all that in their SOP. And I think all those answers will be in that SOP on how they are going to operate that building. But we need to get, I say we, the board needs to make that clear to Mike on how that contract needs to be written, on who is paying for what. It's not our business on how they come up with the money to pay us. That's in their SOP to decide. But we've got to work out all those.
Yeah, from a county standpoint, I mean, this is a structure on county land. It's a county-owned structure. It's going to be on our asset list. We'll be insuring it.
Yes.
So, the fire departments, this isn't money. This shouldn't be looked at as money that you gave them to do this. No. You allocated county funds to build a county facility on county property. Mm-hmm. Now, as far as the only money that the fire departments have discretion over is the $1 million they get through the contract. And if the board is going to fund them additionally, then that needs to be an amendment to that contract.
I think the caveat in all of this is while the facility is on county property, it is a county asset. The county doesn't have any tracking mechanism. A fire chief from Pokey comes in and says, we train X employees or X volunteers to do this. Until we get to the point where we actually have a coordinator or a quote-unquote county employee that all this information is fed back to, it is going to be really, really hard to accurately track and document, number one, what they spend outside the county on training, because some of these fire departments don't have funds to go outside the county. They may get together the second Tuesday of every month at their station and go through a training exercise or a meeting and call it a training exercise because of what the content of the meeting is. But it is my opinion that the county, and this is moving towards a conversation I know we've touched on a couple of times, at a minimum we need a clerk to bring this together for them. But also, I'd love to see the county look at something along the lines of having a fire marshal in the county that's outside of the code enforcement group over here, because their functions are different. And also having one person that coordinates all the efforts that our volunteer fire departments make, because I know that the guys, and I admire all the people in the volunteer fire departments, but you know, the guys in East Sanford want to buy a ladder truck, and we don't have anything taller than a two-story house in East Sanford. You know, and in an effort to make sure that all of their monies are spent wisely, it would seem to me that someone who, while they can't direct what each department does, could at least suggest that. It would behoove us to look in that direction, I believe.
Well, I agree that the county is at some point is going to have somebody that is the county, quote unquote, coordinator, chief, whatever. Okay, much like Oconee County's got, and they've actually got some fire boys now. But the one thing that we could do right now is every one of those fire departments, because of the Georgia State Fire, you know, Academy and all that kind of stuff, and because they require that you turn in records. So one of them's got software tracking on their records about their training and all that. You know, we've had in this contract that they turn in where they spend the money. We could also say, you need to turn in the training and all that. Since we've put money into building this facility, we want to know what's being done with that. And so we could make that a part of doing that. And it doesn't have to be on that one day. Maybe it's supposed to be on a quarterly basis. They talk about all the training and stuff. But that should be easy to come by, some of that kind of stuff. And I agree, it would, ultimately, we want to get to the person, but we could start to require them to give us some training information about what they've done, and what they've done over in that building, and what they're spending on operating costs. I mean,
well, even scheduling use of the building.
Yeah,
we're going to have to.
Yeah. Well,
right now we're going to be relying on the fire training association to handle the in-house scheduling, which is normally just made up of the chiefs. To work alongside each other. But staying on point to the topic, right now, the way we did it, it's $1 million. We're going to give them $1 million to build as much as they can build. Now, we do foresee that being the full facility, because that's what we wanted, the turnkey facility for training. If there's an added outdoor grill, if there's an outdoor office for the future, I feel like that'll be budgeted in our yearly budget capital outlays. If we decide, okay, you are going to hire a person, but you're going to need an office for them, then fine. We'll capital outlay an office at the fire training facility, but it's not part of this project. This was written as a $1 amount, one-time deal.
Well, on this, and this is my recollection of the discussion that revolved around this, there's going to have to be some concrete poured that's not part of the package. There'll have to be a fire hydrant or access to water that's not a part of the package. There'll have to be some determination of where that water's going to go. You know, some kind of detention facility or whatever that's not a part, because, I mean, I guess what I'm saying is there's some substantial dollars, and when I say substantial dollars, that's 10, 15, 20% of this $1 million is going. Yeah. It hadn't been, to the best of my knowledge, it hasn't even been discussed.
No.
Because it hasn't been brought up.
No. It was in it. So the fire training facility is 662. And then there's another 338 for the concrete and the water lines. Right now, we're looking at the projected is, based off of the RFQ, RFP, I think, we got back 667, or 662 is the number for the building, installed, ready to go. Now, we had to provide the electrical, we had to provide the pad, the footings, concrete, driveway, water line.
Yes.
That's where the other $338,000 comes in. But it was supposed to end up with a turnkey walkaway project for $1 million. Or less. But the original request did not have outbuildings on it, or office spaces. That's what they're gonna come at, and that's okay.
Yeah, and they can present it as,
They can, and we can look at those as individual year outlays. And we'll, okay, this year we got enough money, we're gonna let you build a 40 by 60 office. You know.
There's a couple things that come up. One is, I'm gonna say, we allocated $1 million. They said in their contract, and part of the conversation is, they're gonna take part of our annual fee and support this project with it. So we've already expended some money on it, so I don't see any reason why we can't take that money, accept it now. It's not in any account. Journal entry to, an expense that's already gone. That moves that money back to under our control, and it's already expended. That just
clears it up.
Clears it up. The $1 million, whatever's left there. We do know the water line went into concrete when I get this facility operational. And as far as controlling it, I agree with everybody. I think sooner or later, whether it's next year or 2 years or 3 years, we got to come together to have a chief or something that it's, and it's not just training, it's coordinating assets. I know you sell hot dog and hoagie versus, corn. There's got to be some kind of equitable, and I'm not saying everybody's got to have the same thing. I'm just saying, does everybody need a light truck? Or does everybody just need to make sure they've got some basic equipment? Those kind of things. And they're the ones that's going to need to be scheduling. So as part of our contract, I don't see why, part of this, part of their use of our facility, because that's what it's going to be, is that we require them to have the chiefs can define who it is, but they dedicate a training officer to control the facility, and they got the key.
And that was part of their.
Everybody ain't gonna run down to the hardware store and get a copy. It's gonna be, you're the training officer, you got the key, you're gonna sign it out, you're gonna sign it back. Well,
that was part of the fire chief's meeting was, when they come to, the people that are building the facility will come and do, it's like a 1 or 2 day training on how to use the facility. You have to have, it's either 2 or 3 training officers that are not there for training, but they're there for safety, watching how it goes, the training goes. So each department will have, I think it's 3 to 5 that they'll have that'll be training.
I think that's great, but my point is, somewhere the little old lady's got a calendar, she's charging fellows off the church. And until you get on her calendar, you ain't promised nothing. That's what I'm saying.
So, and I know this is kind of tedious and minuscule, but me and Todd had kind of talked, me and Alan had talked about doing like an automatic gate, a keypad number gate. Maybe each department has their own number to get in. So if we have a way of tracking who was there, we've talked about cameras being there on the property, because it's county property. So those are conversations we're having in-house too. And there has been conversations too with fire chiefs and what the commissioners want to do for paid positions. That's coming. So I think when we get to that point, there probably needs to be a smaller group of maybe 2 commissioners and a smaller group of some fire chiefs to kind of weed that out. That's a lot.
It's going to be unusual for just one fire department to go down there and have a burn. It's got to be just about countywide, because you got to have certified instructors and safety folks and all that. And county's already got some. You got Butch and Mark and those people that are certified by the Georgia, and so to do that. And then a lot of these classes, when they do it, they're going to have to get somebody from even Georgia safety to come up and help conduct the class. And so it's going to have to be managed. And I know that the fire association, that group, the chiefs, have talked about doing that. And so they're going to have to, amongst them, come up with, like you said, designate, these are the folks that have control of it. And so, but going back to where we're talking about the 180,000, did the auditors have a problem with this, moving that money in? Or?
No, they had a problem with us holding on to it in a separate account, because we'd have to create an account.
Right.
That would draw interest that they would be eligible for, but yeah, we had to report for.
But if we just took it, put it in
Put it back in general fund.
General fund, yeah,
$660
I agree with, yeah, that we ought to do that and use that for those expenditures already, yeah.
So moving forward, because I will tell y'all, it's gonna be hairy when we get to the point.
Yeah.
There's a lot of feelings, there's a lot
Oh,
of
guys,
25, 30-year guys.
if you look at.
When you get into that pay thing, which we know we're all gonna cross it, they know they're all gonna cross it, but that's gonna be one tough bridge.
Well, and it's,
So you know.
and it's also not just for the volunteer fire department, it's gonna be for the county.
That's right.
Because all of a sudden, when we start doing that, we're gonna start incurring costs for a lot of, for people that we gotta.
You're gonna inquire about $1 million right out the gate.
And so it's not gonna be a cheap thing too, so we're gonna have to take this very.
But let's roll on.
But all these questions about this training facility that have been brought up, we can make a list of those, list the concerns, what we view as operational issues moving forward, and then, hand it to the fire chiefs and say, look, these are our issues, y'all let us know how you want to have it, and let them bring that suggestion back to us.
And I think they're willing to do that. And talking to Mark and Bush the other day, they want to work out as many details for us as we can, because they know we don't have time to work it.
And it all needs to be done prior to
Absolutely.
getting anywhere close to beginning to use it.
All right, road department reallocation, you want to go ahead with that one, Christina, you want me to?
The relocation, there's not much. They're moved in over there last week to start clearing, surveys and done. Once they get the clearing done, our guys will stump it, and we'll get a company out there to drill little potholes and decide where the old landfill is. But anything past that, there's not a dollar figure that's allocated or site plan that's been made. We can't make a site plan until we know where the old landfill is.
Yeah. We got a good idea, and we're literally gonna take our own excavator and, between Frog and Mark, they think they know where the line is. We're gonna pothole the transfer station all the way around the border, so we know exactly what land not to cross onto. What, did you like? But anyway, Mike Crest says it'll be about 3 weeks before he's done clearing it. We'll be in the summer.
The road department needs they need to be handing us the facility's needs. This is what we need out of this facility. So we'll know how big a footprint we're looking at, can work on the design.
So you want that to look like a departmental from all staff of the department, kind of getting all the guys together and asking them, think about it and let us know what they think?
Well, I think it's Derek and Alan, and probably some of you like those folks. But that's just
How big a project? Is this gonna be a design, build, construction project, or?
It'll be just about like what we did before with the EMS station. We'll probably design and build it ourselves.
No,
Sub it out. I'm talking about sub it out ourselves. I'm talking about sub it out ourselves. We're not building anything right
We got, no, I mean, I already see that. We're gonna take the county excavator and do this, we're gonna take that. And then every day we get the calls by folks that ain't working on the road because they over here pulling stumps somewhere else, you know. If we're gonna move forward with projects, we need to move forward with it like it's a project, you know? I mean, if we'd rather do that, why don't we just take the prisoners out there and just put a couple of guards with them, let them cut down the trees, you know? I mean,
I would agree with you 99% of the time, but on this particular issue, I got a road department that's functioning perfectly fine today. And to spend $5 million moving it across the road to spend $5 million, I can't do it.
we haven't spent anything
We haven't spent,
yet.
but it
We
will
don't
get
even know
to
what
it.
it's gonna be, but we're gonna pull people off of doing the job that they're hired to do, to go do the road, to go build a road department.
You misunderstood what I was talking about. What I said was we would pothole to figure out where the landfill boundaries is, where I can pay somebody to come do it. I got money. We got money in the bank, but I ain't got an abundance of money. So I gotta pick and choose my priorities.
I would hire somebody to come out there and I would do some test borings to find out what the parameters of the place is and move on with
We
it.
can do that.
I mean, if not, we're gonna be sitting here next year talking about what we're gonna do whenever we get ready to do the road department.
There's not a rush to move the road department, just to be honest. I know everybody got.
That's obvious because we've been here 3 years and we hadn't done anything to improve the rec department. You know, we've talked about land everywhere. I mean,
We talked about
we
land,
just
but we was
going around
also
in
basing,
circles,
we was
Todd.
also basing it off having $3.5 to $5 million worth of grants that fell through. So right now, you're just a hypothetical theory at this point. We can make bigger parking lots, but right now, that's all you're gonna do, because you ain't got the money to move forward on no project. That's a rec department other than the parking lot.
We have monies available, because we talked about that at the first of this meeting, to put back as an investment to the citizens in the county.
Right.
You know, and still have a surplus that's adequate to meet the needs of what the county could have.
You're right, but you know as well as I do, $1.5 million, $2 million don't go but so far in construction. All right, Highway 72 water line, that one, everything is done, we're just waiting on.
USDA.
Huh?
USDA.
Yeah, we're just waiting on USDA to give us our, procurement process so we can jump through the hoops. That one should be a no-brainer. What we are doing on this one is because it opened up the, project for Mike Collins. We're probably talking to Mark Perry and Rodney the other day. We may look at just doing a blank submit, not really a blank submittal, but throwing something at the wall, hoping it'll stick. We're gonna try to get a water line, a water tower at, up there on Highway 98 towards Commerce somewhere, so we can catch that pressure up on that end of town.
Could I ask
Sure.
something about that?
Sure.
Have you looked at, don't we have 2 water towers that are,
Got one hub,
Yeah,
no, that are empty now?
we do.
from, one hull is not usable because it overflows with the other.
Yeah.
Well,
We
got
have no
one
water
full
tower that's
Madison
usable
and the EMS station that are offline.
They're all offline, yes, sir.
They're too low.
Yeah, and just for the record, I'm gonna back up just 1 second, the water tower at the EMS station in Danielsville is the same height as the city of Danielsville's water. So the IDBA requested, and y'all may have read it in the newspaper, did the city of Danielsville want that tower? Because that tower is not only their height, but it's also about 380 feet, maybe 400 feet from their existing line, that they could have another 150,000 gallons worth of redundancy to tie that in at the city's expense, but the IDBA gives them a tank.
Well, so,
Yeah, that sell is a lot better word than give in this situation.
Well, it is, but most of the time on water tanks, because the cost to take it down is about as much as it costs to put it up,
But
they normally give them to them for $1, just to fulfill the contracts. The one I've got from Franklin County in Danielsville now behind the high school cost me $1.
because y'all own it, then you had to pick it up, move it.
We had to pay to move it, yes.
They ain't gonna have to pay to move it, or
Yeah, if I'm the city of
Correct.
Danielsville, and that's a good thing for me, then I would offer you.
Well, they don't need it now.
They will some.
Well, they will at some point.
Yeah,
But we don't need, what I guess the IDBA is looking at, they don't need the extra $15,000, $20,000 a year worth of insurance we have to pay on it while it's sitting there empty. Now, the one in Hull, we did talk about, potentially moving one, but the cost of raising one to make it equal to ours was just about the cost of, to be honest with you, is about the cost of putting up a new tower, to raise a tower. Now, the problem with Nice Commerce, the reason we talked about doing the grant for Nice or not Nice Commerce, but the whatever that way is, Highway 98 East, is because our 150,000 gallon tanks is not enough to suffice anything up there, because the water lines are so sparsely spread out in that area of town, that it's gonna take about a 400 to 500,000 gallon water tank, which is gonna put you at about a $4 to $5 million project instead of $1 million project. But if y'all have any questions about the water tank at, EMS, please contact Mark Perry or Ben or somebody, because at this point, I think they're moving forward with trying to get it off their books.
I would encourage them to get some cash from it. I think they still has a good bit of debt that's in their name at this time. But for me, when we start having these kind of discussions, I don't even think about new water towers, moving water towers, discontinued water towers until I see the water system plan. So we'll know where we're going, so we'll know, is it gonna work where it is today, or is it not gonna be part of the plan?
Gotcha. I would reach out to Ben and
And we say reach out to them, we've obviously made the statement that the water department's gonna be ours in the short, near future, so. So that's, the way my mind works, I don't start moving pieces until I see the plan and see where the pieces fit.
I certainly wouldn't start disposing of assets, because at the end of the day, it's still an asset.
I agree.
And
I would definitely reach out to one of those two guys.
That would be my request to Ben, to hold off doing anything on it until we know what our whole plan is gonna be, and give us the opportunity to make that decision.
What is this, March? We're in May, April, we're in April, May, June. Unless we miraculously find a magic wand, we will not be moving the water department in 24 for 25. Because I don't think you can get the structure figured out. And I'm just guessing. I don't think in 2 months you're not going to be able to figure out how to restructure. If you adopt the budget in June or July, you don't have enough time. We've kicked this can, and then we drop the ball, and we kick it, and we drop the ball, and we kick it, and we drop the ball. No, not about anybody. I'm just as much a part of this. I'm just saying there's a lot of structuring that's going to have to take place, even from the
We'll talk about
legal
that
side.
in just a minute.
Okay, we'll just wait till we get.
Just to finish off this, the board also agreed to build a new 911 center. So that's on the back side of the second sheet of this. So I had a few questions. COC need to discuss further. Where do y'all want to put this? Previously, the board had talked about putting it behind where the current EMS station is when we were talking about moving the road department. So there's discussions about it there. There's been discussions about it being somewhere. I think, Todd, you talked somewhere in city, the Danielsville somewhere. We talked about having 911 and the Danielsville EMS combined in one building, putting 911 in a basement.
Correct.
And having the EMS station upstairs, but two completely not accessible through the same building. So 911 will be completely separated. During last year's retreat, you'll see that you agreed to allocate $1 million, but legal counsel and for me, that wasn't a official BOC voted action to allocate $1 million. So if y'all want to move forward with that, I'm going to put it on an agenda for us to, we could put some parameters around that project, finalize the details on where y'all want to put it, how much money y'all want to allocate, when do y'all want to start, so on and so forth.
Talking about the 911 center. So this is one of the ones that we talked about in reference to the ARPA funds.
Yes.
This one's been kicked around probably since about 2018 and 19, maybe 2020, 21, up till now. So what I done was I just drew up a layout. Brennan drew up a layout. I drew up a layout. And basically it shows the EMS, or 911 under EMS. 911 is one of those crazy buildings that you can't really have any windows. It has to be a secure location, indoor fenced in. That's the reason they have it the way they do now. There's some GCIC security stuff the state mandates for 911 systems. So in thinking about this, I chose the Danielsville City Hall behind it, going back towards the roundabout the other way. Of utilizing that parking lot and utilizing that grade of the fall right there to be a perfect basement lot. So I talked to Brendan and Bobby, and I thought, we can do this very simply. That way we would maintain parking down that end. It's out of the way. It don't convolute City Hall. But yet the lot is a doable lot for a basement. Basically the building is 50 by 60 for 911, and right above it will be the living quarters, as you can see, for EMS. It's always cheaper to go up than it is out. So I believe we'll be somewhere around that $1 million mark for both of those buildings to be joined in one. I was approached. Let's say it's on record.
So is this something that the board wants to go out for an RFP or an RFQ, or do we?
We can do a cost analysis if y'all want to get you rough numbers to see if you think that's something you want to move forward with. I think you're going to be at $1.2 million for both buildings.
No.
But you've already allocated $1 million if you choose to, verbally, not contractual, or not voted.
Is there anything in the way that 911 center operates that would dictate where a location would be better or not better?
Well, they really want to be somewhere around the tower they currently have.
That, like, before the line of sight, like down 98, so would it be better if we're sitting right on 98?
Well, no, because now, about a year or so ago, we connected those, this building, 911, and the sheriff's office with a new fiber. So now it really doesn't matter as long as they're within so many thousand feet of the current tower that they have. So if it was to go in Danielsville, the only reason I projected Danielsville was we have a problem currently that we have 2 EMS stations 4.5 miles apart. So geographically, it makes no sense. Like Isla shouldn't either not have been in that location or Danielsville should have been somewhere else to begin with. So we're trying to get it back centered into town where the main schools are, getting it closer to Comer than going the opposite direction. It's the only reason we plan on moving that site. Now, with that being said, in turn, if we move the EMS station at the same time and we build them both at the same time, it'll free up the current EMS station for we have now for potential offices for the rec department, because rec department offices don't have to be on the same side of the road as the rec department. The sporting facilities do, but the offices don't, because the offices are only open 8 to 5. Nobody goes to a rec department office after 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Parents don't, because they're closed. So it really wouldn't matter. Or we could utilize that for potentially maintenance department offices. But it's at least a structure that is usable there if we vacate the property. So anyway, just something to think about on how y'all want to move forward with that. But if you want me to, I'll get you a rough guess preliminary cost estimate.
Well, I don't know what the operational parameters are for the 911 or whatnot, and for the EMS, because, and I'm not convinced, can you fit a building over there in a parking lot? Probably, but we gotta protect, if we're gonna do something with the courthouse, parking space, all that kind of stuff, if we wanna have a tourism draw in town. I mean, I'm not the city of Danielsville, but if we have a significant investment in that area, we need to be able to protect those assets of what we need. And I'm just not convinced that, 911, and I know those guys aren't here, but if there's a wall right here, they're not gonna want Joe Blow Public just parking next to it, because you can put something in the back of the truck and blow it up. So somewhere there's operational parameters, how much space they need, or at least should be recommended. So they need to be probably in a self-contained area, and it probably doesn't mean in the middle of town. So a square foot of a building is one thing, but we need to expand our thought process to get it right.
Well, actually, that's what I thought I'd done by giving you the formula of the up and down. And I did talk to Brendan, and I did try to get a location. Currently, they're on less than 1/8 of an acre. This was at the end of that parking lot. I don't know, I felt like I'd done my homework, but that's why we had this meeting today, so everybody can do their own homework. This is not just about me and Christina. That's what we're all here to do. So yes, I take those points greatly, and we will look. I do appreciate it. That's a good idea.
The other aspect that I didn't think about till Derek started talking, if I'm concerned about, if I'm thinking that the biggest issue may be service to the schools, then being in downtown Danielsville probably presents the biggest potential traffic hindrance to getting there than anywhere else I can think of around here. Particularly if there's an event ongoing in downtown Danielsville. I see a real potential traffic volume.
So you want to come on this side of 29?
I'm just thinking out loud. I see that as a potential problem for EMS vehicle ingress and egress.
Uniform way to stop. You got to be on one or the other corner. It doesn't matter which way you go.
That's just
Yeah, I get it.
On our project list, because I'm sure we're gonna have other discussion on this, could we, because they are all the groundwork for additional projects or development into projects, could we add our CPL thing that we've got going on to this project list a water feasibility study to this project, Liz? Or do
the
we have
reason
that
why-
somewhere else?
They're not on anything for us to discuss today.
No,
But this is specifically for capital projects, is what this list is. Instead of like CPL, it is a project, and we are spending money, but it's operational, day-to-day, not a capital construction.
the water feasibility is gonna turn into that.
It will turn into that, yes.
So the water feasibility's changed a little bit. We had a meeting, 2 weeks ago now, Thursday? Eric Neese, Carter and Sloop. So it looks like when Regional Commission wrote that, the RFQ, they didn't define it very well. And it was, it's okay, but it was what Eric and them, what Carter and Sloop was, the road they were going down, they was fixing to give us a 50,000-foot view of our feasibility study. So me and Mark was talking about it, and we needed to change course. So we brought them in, and we sat down for about 4 hours and said, look, I get that you're trying to look at 25 years, but we also need to look about 5 years. And what we found was, and the reason we questioned that is we knew we ran into a problem at Madison Park, and then we also started running into a problem up here off Highway 98 East with some water pressure issues. Yeah, there's lines, and yes, there's hydrants, but they only last about 3 or 4 minutes. If you turn on the second valve, then the other one goes dry. So just because it's in the ground, the Commerce water pressure is about 33 pounds. Recommended's 45. So that's why we had to stop Eric, and he's gonna give us, the bid come in at 45,000. Carter Sloop won that bid at 45, but they bid it based off the RFQ. There was $150,000 there to use, because that's what the award was, a 50% matching grant. So we was able to we just told them, look, you put us together another one, and we'll extend this. I'm gonna ask you, obviously. Because we actually had to send it to Mark Beatty and said, hey, Mark, can this be like phase 2 of our water feasibility request to ARC? And he said, yes, but I need to see this. So Eric's putting that together, we'll have it.
And the last thing would be the rec leisure services or whatever, the master plan related to that, because I assume that whatever we do with the rec department and the senior center, if it becomes involved in it, that we will have some outline there of, here again, the potential for it to develop into a major project is there, and we need to recognize it now rather than a year from now. Let's look at it and say, God Almighty, we didn't know we was going to do that. You know? When do we expect to see the revised proposal from Carter Sloop? When do you expect that?
I hope this week. He told us 2 weeks ago that it would take him about a week and a half, 2 weeks to get it to us. And then we have to send it to the regional commission to get their blessing. Again, the funds is already allocated, but we have to have a blessing for those funds to be used in that way. And this is above the other. He's still going to do the other for us. And I don't know why it didn't register with me or anybody else that we had 150, we accepted a bid for 45. I should have read better as to what the 45 was going for, and I didn't catch it. But day to day here, it's very easy not to catch something. All right, moving on. Industrial Development Authority, Christina.
Okay, so, I tried to separate the IDA from the water department transition. So in your IDA folder, this information was given to us by, Stephanie, yeah. So she's broken down some numbers, their bond payment, an asset list, location of pumps, diesel loan payment. What I put on the agenda was an update on the current project, which Stephanie come to our last meeting and gave y'all an update. A transition of debt, what is that process? My understanding, but I would like just Mike to note it again, that bond counsel says there's no need for any changes for any documents to be drawn up.
Correct.
Discussion of the redistribution of the IDA millage rate. Does the 1 mil collected decrease the transfer of the GFA loan debt? The millage rate stays the same. Of course, this is a conversation that the BOC needs to have with the IDA, but that was mentioned and brought up, and that is why it's on the piece of paper, because there's $8.4 million in GFA loans for water debt. Does the BOC take that debt? Does it stay with the IDA? If the BOC takes the debt, does the IDA lower their millage rate for what that payment is a year? We calculate that value in a millage rate, and they roll back their millage rate back, because our millage rate will have to increase by that, so that there's decrease by that. Are we shifting that money? That needs to be a conversation.
And gentlemen, just so you know, I didn't mean to be, I know my tone may have got in the way a minute ago when I said I don't see this happening in the next 2 months. It's because we knew for so many hard decisions that got to be made. Do we want to acquire that $8.5 million debt? Do we want to retain that 1 mil? How are we going to fund the economic development, use that board to our advantage? What part of that mill is going to get? That's the part I meant when I just didn't see us being able to get those I's dotted and T's crossed in just the next 2 to 3 months.
And
that's all I was meant by that. I know I probably said it wrong, and probably come across wrong, but.
And so when you talk about economic development, the BOC and the IDA will have 2 retreats with the IDA board to really put the parameters around that. The first one being this Friday, the second one we haven't scheduled yet with Ms. Miller. She's from the University of Georgia, the Carl Vinson Institute, Economic Development. This is her thing, what she does. So she'll be able to help answer a lot of those questions. There is an economic development folder in here. There's a strategic plan, and there's some outline stuff, and then we'll go through that in a little bit when we get there. So the committee that we put together, and Dennis was part of this, so he can help too, they did put together a strategic plan, visions, goals, all that good stuff. But I need someone to say, this is where they're going to be housed at, this is who's paying them, and this is who they work for.
And Mike, I think you'll have questions too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, another thing, water department IDA is two in one. So when we talk about water department transition, what is the standard operating procedure? Just a standard SOP. They don't currently have one. They don't have a whole lot of policy. I am one person. I can't do everything for everybody, and I don't know who it is creates that SOP for you guys.
It'll more than likely end up being CPL, but we're going to end up charging CPL with enough duties to last for the next 24 months.
Well, I think CPL can write the ordinances in for the water line expansion construction requirements on developers, but they're not going to outfit. They're going to write you an SOP for daily operations.
No.
So,
no, you're right.
We don't have anybody that.
That's right.
So I need y'all to tell me.
I think that would be an item that I would probably discuss with Carter and Sloop. That's their forte. And Derek, please, you're more familiar with them than I am, but when their name came up, if you Google them, this is what they do.
Yes, and when we did the interviews with them, they offer a service like CPL does, an on-call type service. They offer the same thing.
That's definitely worth looking into.
Oh, absolutely. That's what they do. We need to rely on these things. Sometimes we think we save $1 by doing something ourselves, and then we end up either prolonging it or shoot ourselves in the foot. Yeah. We need to use them, appropriately. Going back to one of the questions, going back to the IDA, like these sheets here. I keep saying I want to get a bigger picture of the finances, and I think first thing I need to make sure that, everybody needs to recognize that, we say this is IDA debt, but it's our debt.
Right.
Oh, yeah. You can spend it however you want to, but, for example, talk about like the balances on some of these loans, the talks about the fence principle of what we're paying. But if you layer all these on top of each other and see that draw out, you know, like a bond schedule would be, and see if we need to make adjustments, you know, are we paying on the right places? Do we really want to pay, you know, do the interest loans that are there, do we want to be paying extra and not capture cash that could be applied for either a system improvement, or we can bank, you know, we're paying $2,000 a month extra on something, do we want to bank that money and start building a cash reserve for potential, the IDA land acquisition, you know, so we can develop some parks or something. We need to have a better, we need to have a finance person that understands all that to help us get or at least be able to show it in a manner than just, you know, me having to get my drafting tools out, create my own chart.
So is that something that we hire like a CPA to come in and advise, financially advise, or is that something our auditor can do?
I was going to say, I think it's something, I mean, basically you're talking about for the water department, you're talking about moving an enterprise fund from the IDBA to the Board of Commissioners. So I think your auditor would be involved in that. Has Susan had any involvement with that? She has? Okay. So she's probably already got some insights there.
Yeah, I mean, you know, and Derek's 100% correct on whether you want to pay extra now or potentially run the rates. And, you know, sometimes it's better to save that cash. Depending on what your race is, you know, with your bonds. I don't know.
But again, if you look at what they, in this folder, the water department folder, if you look at it compared to what other counties are doing, we're infantile in our thinking.
There's probably not even enough customers here to have the water department here.
Well, the issue is not whether, the issue regarding the viability of a water department that belongs to the county, I think is very real. It's not going to be a cash cow like our municipalities utilize their water departments for. But it places us, I believe, in a better position in regarding to applications for grants for the future, and analyzing what our water needs are and negotiating appropriate contracts that we don't let the contract expire and then run it on a 30-day basis, because that's flirting with disaster right there. The other thing, I as a casual observer, and here not being critical of the IDA and the way it facilitates what it does at all, but I do not understand the process of how they determine what direction they're going to go in with things. I mean, and I say that, and here again, not being critical at all. I simply don't understand their thinking about what they do, and if we choose for them not to become the water, not to become a county department, I think we're going to procrastinate that, and the next time it's looked at, the debt's going to be greater. Because, you know,
what, I'm sorry, has water and sewer been part of the discussion with CPL on the?
Vaguely, yes.
Vaguely, very vaguely.
They know that we're wanting to bring the water department under, and they know that the water department doesn't currently have policies, and they are.
Y'all are tired of hearing me say this, but as far as direction, what I've always heard and seen is that water and sewer drives the direction of development more than any ordinance you'll write.
Right.
And the way you build a water system is by having the developers put it in for you.
Absolutely.
By giving them the lower lot sizes and the things they need to be able to do it.
Absolutely.
So that's why I asked about CPL's involvement.
Well, I mean, some of the decision making, you know, goes back to, you know, when Clark County was severed Dogburg and the IDA picked it up.
Yeah.
Water under the bridge wasn't there for that decision, so it's moved on, you know, it's expanded in areas probably not as wisely as it should have. Then we corrected some things, and now we are here. And I think if I'm sitting on their board, knowing that we've had these conversations internally and publicly, that we might want to make a change, they're sitting on the fence going, do we operate something, or are we fixing to get rid of it? So I think part of it is on us, but I think the status quo, you know, whether, if we're going to operate something, whether it's through the IDA or us, that debt number is going to have to get larger, because there's no way to do it. But like you said, you know, it was a 50-year bond, it's a planned out conversation, you know, that's got to happen. You know, if we take the water authority over, or we want them to operate it, we as a body, or whoever, the five that's sitting here, the policymakers, have got to give them a mission statement or direction of what we want to see and how they want to operate. Because we appoint all of them. I mean, they're not elected officials. They're doing our bidding, so to speak. So I think we've kind of had them hanging out there, not knowing what direction to go. You know, as far as moving them over, setting it up as a enterprise fund, those are some of the financial things that I've been wanting to know from the beginning, how we get to it, how we operate it. And we got to go through the minutia to do it. We need to set some deadlines and some milestones to do it. I mean, they've got an operating budget now. We could adopt that and just say, hey, that's what we're going to use and move it. But, you know, we still got to decide what we want to do with them. When I say do something with them, how we want that department or that authority to function.
What it's going to evolve into.
Yeah, right. And maybe
its role will be,
you know, Friday or whatnot can.
That'd be a good meeting.
Help that understanding of what they think. I mean, you know, I'd say, you know, I think we need a water system, but to me, that water system is not putting a meter in every address. We're in a unique situation where we've got 6 municipalities. I want to be able to push water to help those development nodes where we need to have them. You know, I was going on vacation. Some of you have heard me say that. I was going on vacation when Calvert hardware store burned down because territorially, you know, somebody wouldn't open a valve or nobody wanted to operate it, or, you know, those are 6, you know, we can't have elementary schools. We've got to be able to help each other, and that's what I see that department doing.
Yeah, thank you, Spot. The other side of it too is, and this is my thoughts and has been from the initial thoughts of the water department becoming part of the county, and Mike touched on it just briefly there in regards to lot size, where potential development can take place, who's responsible for development, connection fees, and things like that. Currently, with the IDA over here, with zoning and planning over here, and you touched on it briefly, Todd, with your comments regarding, well, you need to talk to Ben, you need to talk to things. On a department level, they're not talking to each other. So how can we coordinate those efforts if it's not part of the same entity?
Well, and that's because, yeah, part of this though is we don't even have, they're not employees full time for that. Some of them are not. Yeah. Anyway, and so that's a disconnect right there.
Yeah, and to be honest, and y'all both right. To be honest, me and Mark both sit on the board.
That's right.
But that's all.
That's
it. We question, why did we do this? We didn't vote on this. How does this run like this? We didn't even know that happened. When did that happen? Because we're not over it. We don't know. We get stunned just as much as everybody else sometimes.
Well, and I think some of them on the board have been stunned about what's happened too. I mean,
correct.
Yeah, because that's changed too now. You know, like this. This whole thing's going to have. It's got to be a total restructure.
Friday would be a very important meeting, and it could be a very important and very insightful meeting. But the next one is water department transition. if any of y'all looked at that. But that's some of the challenges that have to be worked out with the employees.
We need professional help with that. We need professional help. I'm serious. I mean, look, this is the thing, and I've said this, we got staff in Madison County that are really good, okay? But we ain't got enough of them. And we don't have enough expertise in a lot of areas.
That's the issue. We do not have the depth to do this.
That's right.
Dennis has said that since day one.
Yeah.
We have no redundancy.
And we decide, like, I think it's already been pointed out, we decide sometimes we can do this and we can save some money, but then it costs us money in the future. And then, you know, as we talk about previous administrations, what they did is because they didn't have the staff that we got. So that's how we got into some of this stuff that we're in now. So we need to make a change. And folks, it's going to require that either we're going to have to contract it out or we're going to have to hire some folks to the place. So I just think we need professional help in a lot of areas, and who the appropriate people are, I'm depending on Todd and Christine and somebody else helping us find us who their folks are out there. Maybe Derek, because he's an engineer, and Denny, because he knows about water.
I don't know nothing about water. I know it's supposed to run down here, hot some left, coals on the right. Some say I'm a SOB because I don't do that.
I've heard you just, maybe this is worth saying out loud, you know, you don't have a planner or any, you know, somebody like that on staff in planning and zoning, you don't have an executive director or they don't, or the IDA.
That's right.
And in both cases, you talked about maybe contracting out that expertise. It just seems like that's sort of a theme here through some of these things is, are you going to reach out, pay the salaries that you would have to have that expertise in-house, or are you going to go to more of an outsourcing model?
Yeah. Well, I will say this, Mike, in my relationship with those officials in other jurisdictions, we don't begin to pay the salaries that those positions.
Right.
We're demanding. I mean, it's not a, oh, well, this will be an entry level for you. That ain't the way it works.
Well, we don't want the entry level people because they don't have
we don't have anybody to train.
That's right. We don't have anybody to train them. That's right.
All right, so y'all see the water department transition paperwork. It's very cut and dry, very basic, but those are challenges. The 401A, 457B, all that, where they got the chamber structure through the IDA and who's on whose benefits. Train wreck in itself. I don't know if y'all caught that one page a minute ago in the Industrial Development Authority folder, where the IDBA contributes how much to the chamber, BOC to the chamber, and what the BOE contributes. Office space. Ours is 6,200 a quarter. It's okay. No worries.
On that whole water, before we move on, I don't get hung up if transitioning water authority to the county is the right move. I'm not hung up on time period. Obviously, we've got a lot of questions that need to be answered. One of the things we have not mentioned in this conversation is the cities as part of a role player. Mm-hmm. And Mike mentioned it was and the people in Newton County made it work. So I respectfully disagree that water systems, I'm thinking water systems self-supporting. And I think we should be thinking that way. And realistically, we have time war before that occurs. But for this issue to get solved, the cities have to be part of the equation. But we talk about, and this was actually brought up to me in conversation or a question about transfer development rights. We hadn't even thought about this. But the cities should be receiving hubs also. So if that becomes part of the equation, then obviously the comprehensive plan has designated a receiving area, while the cities also would be receiving nodes. And it gives greater opportunity for those quarter-acre lots that then create opportunity that water and sewer systems become self-supporting. But again, all of this, to me, you got to look at a bigger picture and then figure out how to get all those pieces together. And part of what the Industrial Development Authority, what that economic development role looks like, begins to dictate their plans, and then from that set of plans dictates how much of that millage rate they continue to need, or then how much of that millage rate then we could ease without charging the citizen of the county more. It becomes part of the millage rate that the BOC collects, as opposed to going to the. So anyway, it's a lot bigger picture, and if we're not careful, we start looking at the small components of it without looking at how this component fits into the bigger picture of what we're trying to accomplish. We end up missing some pieces and missing some big opportunities in the process.
So, yeah, you're right. There's a lot of good points in that. The cities are a municipality for a reason, and you're right, the smaller acreage is the way to go. The problem with it is when you get into those smaller acreages, then therefore you must operate a sewer system. And the cities, when they were created, they did build sewer systems, but they built them at a limited basis to what their capacity could hold. As far as Newton County, you could sell water and make money. The reason cities make money off the water is because they're producing the water themselves. The county's a little bit different. We don't produce but 17% of the water that we use. We buy it. And the problem, how we got where we're at, and to Dennis's point, and Derek said a minute ago, we don't know how we got where we at, but we know we wasn't at the table. It was mainly they were just trying to be the transfer guy. They were trying to get it from that point to get to that point, hoping we could catch a few along the way that would buy it. The problem was, and the problem will always be in Madison County, is there's so many active wells, and we don't have a policy that says if we come by your house, you must connect.
Like Hart County.
Like Hart County. So therefore, and I heard Dennis say this multiple times, it's hard to spend $5 million on a water line to hook up 7 people. Believe it or not, that's a true statement, unless you're running $5 million worth of water line to get down the road to be able to service somebody that can't. So there's a lot of convoluted.
I think the state law is you can't require a water connection if the property has a functioning well.
Has a function, that's correct. That's what we did in Dangersville. Dangersville says if you got a well, you can have it, but when it stops, you can't drill another.
Right.
As long as you're within so many thousand feet. I think it is 1,000 feet. You're 1,000 foot from a county water line or a city water line or city sewer.
What it's going to boil down to, make it feasible cash-wise, is customers per mile of line. And inside cities, it works because you get a lot of customers per mile of line. And if you create a hub in a county or a receiving node that you allow, then you can feasibly do it, but just running it anywhere in rural areas of the county, it absolutely will never work.
Just run it one end to the other.
It's all about customers per mile of line.
I don't know how much you guys is following. I know Derek's probably up on it. And I'm just talking at this point. But water, right now your cell phone bill is $150 a month, but they gonna be long for your water's $150 a month. Because water's the most important topic in Georgia right now. Because they ain't much. And nobody knows where it's going. So either way, all right, moving on. Chamber of Commerce, we don't have to spend much time on this. I think we've already covered it. Christina, go ahead.
Yeah, so I had an email with Mr. Pruitt, and here you'll see there's a Georgia case law on we don't just give money, we can't just donate money. Of course, you all know that. We have to have the contracted services. So in our agreement with the chamber, which is also in here, was $15,000 per year, and last year we upped it to $25,000 in the budget. The chamber is in here for a number of different reasons. Our relationship with the chamber is growing through the economic development we're partnering with, through the CRC program that we're partnering with, how the IDA, that conversation is shifting, the water department is shifting. So I'll let you know we put down to discuss the chamber's charter for a better understanding on how to improve partnerships, discuss the governmental relationship partnerships, to better work with other entities, and to discuss their 2025 funding, their yearly budget to the chamber. Should this amount increase or decrease or stay the same? We reached out to get their approved budget for 2024, but we didn't receive that. What we did receive is attached, it's the very last attachment. So you'll have the agreement with the chamber and the county, you have their strategic plan, their bylaws, and I really don't know how to decipher what the budget information that they gave you. I think it's something about membership dues and how those dues are projected to be spent.
Who's the chamber liaison? Is that Anna? Is that Buzz? Okay.
She's the person you would ask the question to, but then she goes back to her board for the answer. Am I correct, Pat Stephanie?
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
What you have is probably what I see, and I have questions, before, we don't get a full budget. And that's strange to me, because I'm not seeing a breakdown of everything. If I'm looking at a budget, I want to see where every dollar's going. So I'm assuming you probably get what we get, and it doesn't tell a whole lot.
What I just showed you was exactly what I got, and I'm gonna tell you now, we didn't talk personally, so I didn't lose my cool. And you'll see a copy of the email that I replied back to that. Because it says, it basically says, as a chamber, we feel like this is what you need. And I replied back, that's not what I requested. The Board of Commissioners requested a copy of the budget, not what your perception of what I need is. Because I was trying to figure out what we need to allocate. That's it.
Well, yeah, this whole, we've discussed this about working with the IDA, in a new role and then the chamber and all that. Well, I think there's a good bit of disconnect here, and what can we do? Because Chamber of Commerce is a separate organization with their own things out there they want to do, which and sometimes is going to conflict with what the Board of Commissioners is going to do. So I guess I'm going to be a little more cautious about, after sort of looking at this, about how much money do we invest with them. I mean, I think they're doing a great job in what they're doing, but maybe we need to put our money into, maybe more of a economic development and getting us a person there. And also, we're talking about our planning people and stuff like that, and sort of putting this whole area together, as a unified on our side. So, I'm not against contributing some money, but I don't know that we need to be in that much of a support role that business that we did, because this is private businesses, and they, we want them and we want to work with them, but it's not government's job to actively
promote their business.
We want to make it here in Madison County where they feel good about doing business in Madison County. That's what we want.
So, when you read this agreement, this agreement is through the IDA and the chamber, and the BOC signed off on it too, but it's like, the IDA is hired at the chamber because it's a contracted services, that's the only way you can fund it for economic development. They're the liaison for economic development for the county.
Yeah.
So there's just a whole lot of information that everybody needs to read, so everybody understands who is supposed to be doing what. So as we change economic development and we change the IDA, then we know where we're currently sitting and supposed to be doing.
And that's what I was saying. I mean, maybe we need to focus more on getting.
Well, regardless of what happens with the water department, the IDA and our relationship with the IDA needs to be directed more towards economic development, with water being less of a priority that has been in the past. And I guess, and let me say, Anna Strickland has done a tremendous job promoting the chamber and bringing businesses together to but at the end of the day, the chamber is its own beast.
That's right.
We don't need to be feeding.
Well, and the thing is, I don't know how much legally we can do that without getting into areas that might be, that Mr. Pruitt here might think, would be getting us into some trouble here too.
Yeah, I mean, the main thing that, the Development Authority does, everywhere in Georgia, if it doesn't do anything else, is the vehicle for bond issues. Whether those are infrastructure bonds being issued by the county or, bonds for, a Rivian or some major industry.
Procurement of property that you could locate.
Yes, sir, exactly, that, so, if I understand it correctly, in Oconee County, the IDA employee is also the person who primarily runs the Chamber of Commerce, and that provides but, so the Chamber that's sort of where those come together. I may be misinterpreting it, but the Chamber is recruiting business, bringing it in, and then there's an instant connection to getting the infrastructure there, and the financing basically through the Development Authority.
So, but that Development Authority has what kind of structure as far as they have the county employs
It's an appointed board, and again, I don't think they even have a regular meeting schedule. But, am I wrong on that?
Several of them don't.
Yeah, I think they meet when there's a bond issue to approve, or something that needs to be done to advance the project.
Or on an annual basis to say they had a meeting.
Or that, yeah.
And where I say, again, it goes back to what do we want? And I probably see this overlap for a couple of years. The Chamber of Commerce, we're relying on Anna and her team and the board. I think they're doing a great job. What do we want the IDBA to become? Do we want them to be a financial vehicle that is, kind of there when we need it, and we support growth and economic development areas through the chamber, by, just whatever we allocate it per year out of the budget? Or do we want to commit to, again, going back to paying somebody what they're worth? Do we want to go, put on staff somebody that's going to make $150,000 a year plus benefits and everything else to make those phone calls, go see people, more than likely not be in this county at all. They're going to be traveling the state trying to find people to recruit, and who's going to manage that? There's a whole animal of that could or could not be, depending on what we want that role to be. And again, the board itself, we've got volunteers on it now. We appointed them, but you could very, very well likely appoint that board, with, a planning director that's going to be on it, to properly have that development, of whoever's going to be whoever is the water person, or sewer person. You can have that collaborative effort, by those board members and some citizen members, as well.
Well, and I understand that, and this sounds good, but I wonder if we need somebody that's sort of like Anna's. She's at the chamber, like working on this. She's sort of full time there. Okay.
She went to part-time.
Well, I mean part-time, but just say that the chamber, whoever it is they're working that, and that's a job that they're doing on a sort of a full-time basis. So, it looks like to me we need somebody, and I don't know if it's in planning the role or whatever. Then if we're going to coordinate with them, that person needs to be right there in contact and sort of working on and in coordination with them a good bit, more than what we've got just with appointing a board that just meets every so often. If we're going to really do something, we're going to have somebody that's more involved than what we do it from a county standpoint. And I don't know who that person, what you call them or whatever, but that's just sort of where I'm at.
You're correct. So we heard and we know, well, I think we all understand, the chamber is different from economic development. They share a similar role, but they are different. The chamber is a promoting company, promoting group of people. They're promoting what's already in existence.
Right.
And I heard, you heard Anna, she clearly told us the other day, they don't have anything to do with economic development other than they'll promote it
Right.
once it's already here.
Yeah.
They will not cross the line in advocating for new, but they will promote what's here. And economic development's just different. So IDBA, same deal. If they have a levying power of $250,000, whatever we decide it is, that's fine to hire that person to run the economic development. And they will work hand in hand, but there is a difference in the two roles. And chamber will still be chamber, economic development will be still economic development. I don't really think they want to overlap. I don't think Anna really wants to come out of that wheelhouse of chamber and take it to the next level of economic development because
But they've
it's
got,
apples and oranges.
they've
They're
got
both
to
fruit.
complement each other.
They do have to complement. Yes, they're fruit, but they're a fruit of a different taste.
Yeah, and I don't want to beat this, but I just think that we need to have a person that is, if we want economic development in Madison County, we're going to have to put more effort into it than we have. And we need somebody that it's their job and they're getting evaluated on how well are they doing that. You know what I'm saying? And I mean, I don't know what that person costs. I mean, yeah, right. I'm sure a good person is going to be expensive, but
We're going to hear more about this with Kristen Miller.
So if I can make a
Yes, sir.
suggestion, we've been hammering this since 3 o'clock essentially. And we're halfway through, and most of us have day jobs too.
yeah.
And here again, I'll do whatever the consensus is of the group, but why don't we stop for the evening and pick up, reschedule another meeting? But, and I know it's an inconvenience, but we've got a lot of important subjects that we're gonna be here till 9 o'clock tonight if we try to cover all of these.
Well, I got 4 left, and I can tell you 1 or 2 is going to go quick, 1 or 2 will not. So if y'all want to, Friday's meeting with IDBA is at what time?
Starts at 1, it's a 4-hour meeting.
Shut that.
She asked me to lay out 4 hours, set aside 4 hours for that.
I personally think we'll be done in about an hour and a half to 2 at the very maximum.
Friday.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out a different day to catch up these last 2. Because there's a lot to go in and just let what we've already talked about sink in, because we just hit the highlights. There's a lot of details.
Well, I guess that's part of it. I think that we're gonna have to go back as we go deeper into what we've got right here. It's gonna take us back to some of the folders we've already been into.
So, okay, at least let me ask you to do this, not necessarily for homework, but at least look over the future employment positions, the things that we have open today, and try to look at maybe some of, there's some job titles, classifications, some of the things that we pull from other counties, Christina has, Lacey has. Because we gotta move on senior center director. To be honest, guys, we've never reappointed anybody to the IDBA board. That seat's been open for 1.5 years.
I've had some conversations with them, and they are actively looking.
Yeah.
But
Well, they're actively looking can only be to come to us for that. Yeah, okay.
So you looking for us to make some recommendations on how we?
There's a lot more to that future employment position folder. The leisure services, so like the rec department and senior center, they're wanting to restructure and retitle those job positions. We need to hire or fill the director, assistant director. We need to talk about county planner role. We need to talk about Christopher's old role, how we're going to pull that apart, separate those. There's just a lot of really departments.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'd like to.
Job
I have to
description
look
was
at it
hard.
more, you know, and I don't just sound critical because I know everybody works hard, but so getting this on Friday and then over the weekend, I didn't spend as much time.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't.
Well, we sort of knew everybody wasn't going to be able to.
And so it's more like getting acquainted meeting here, so.
It was.
There is one thing, just for the group's thoughts. Christina, provided Saul with a handbook here.
Yeah.
Even at where we're at, and I made a comment to Christina when I thumbed through it, we have a handbook in my little business. We do. We have a handbook that will tell you everything that'll keep you there and everything that'll get you fired. But two of the most important things we have in there is we have a vision statement and we have a mission statement in the handbook. Well, we're in the unique role here because we have such a diverse group of businesses under one roof that I would almost suggest when you have the opportunity to look at that our HR person and our department heads should get together, and we really need to have mission statements for each department. So that those people understand what their goal is, because obviously the environmental services person in the building, his role is not the same thing as a person that works in the clerk of courts thing, and nor is their responsibilities, and it for me, it's a little bit frightening that we've lumped so much together.
Yeah.
And let me go further than that. It's unfair to some employees that we lump so much together. A clerk's a clerk, a clerk's a clerk, okay. But the road scrape driver and the bailiff's not the same job.
I agree with you.
All right, well, there's two things that needs to be done. I'm assuming we need a motion to approve these minutes.
No.
We don't?
We've already done all that. All that's done. I put them in there, so y'all could, if any of y'all said, well, at last retreat we said this, no, we didn't.
You have to do that at the next regular meeting.
Okay. So, the one last thing I want to say is, again, food for thought, it's not in any of your paperwork. Two things. One, I want to thank you all for being here today. I know we all have different personalities. I know we say things in different tones, but I appreciate each different perspective at this table. I can't do everything right. I know I'm not right. Having Derek to correct me, having Dennis to correct me, having Brian's input, Terry's input, this is what makes my job easier.
Well, I agree with you, Todd.
Frank's gonna take it all in and tell us what we did. Yeah. But what I wanna leave y'all with. Yeah. If I can get, hell, 3 out of 10 things right, as much as we have going on, we're in the positive.
Oh, yeah.
It's hard to comprehend what all it is. And the reason I'm saying that, hang on, the thing I want you to leave with is, I want to move Christina Baxter out from being the clerk of the county and make her an administrative assistant. I want you guys to think about that. I know there's some pros and cons on it. We've only briefly spoke about it, but her role has far exceeded the clerk's role. I know the clerk directly works for me. I understand that, but I've got to prioritize her day better than it is today. Because today she don't know whether she's coming or going, from who's asking the questions, whether it's P&Z asking the questions, Robin Baker asking the questions, Cody Cross asking the questions, Todd's asking the questions, Lacey, or whoever else. So, gentlemen, I want you to take a little bit of time when we reconvene. I'd like to have your thoughts on changing her title to where she can specifically do what she's doing today and let the clerk fill in somewhere else. Now, if she comes back at me and says, how dare you? Fine, we don't have to worry about it anymore.
You change the child, we still do the same thing.
No.
Well, I guess we need to, I think we can fit this, so I guess the job description is really what I.
Definition of what administrative assistant
Yeah.
is. I think it probably comes with a little more responsibility attached to it.
Yeah.
Authority, maybe is a better word.
Boss of all.
That's right.
Well, unfortunately, you're right. It does come with more authority, or not authority, more responsibility. The problem is she's already doing more responsibility than what she's supposed to do.
It needs to be on paper, as Dennis said, if it ain't on paper, and tell me to see it, so it's just, when you, what that was.
And I may be just splitting hairs over the definition, but if we talk about administrative assistant, the way this county's government is currently set up, we have a countywide elected administrator. So does that skew that? Or does that create a problem with the way our government structure is for us as a board to define an administrative assistant position? I'll ask that question just to.
Well, I actually prepared a little bit to talk about that, but you can do this yourself. If you go to the HCCG website, for the County Commissioner's Handbook, go to the web page, they'll pull up the PDF. On the web page, they have the new chapters. There's a new chapter on county government. And there's actually a nice color map in there that will tell you, which counties have county administrators, county managers, and it has some good text that explains the difference. So,
There's a vast amount of difference between administrator and manager. Matter of fact, she knows most of them. You will find counties that has full-time chairs to have county administrator.
right, exactly. And that seems to be the most common.
Even older folks got it.
Yeah,
Just to be honest.
that seems to be the most common.
Because I don't care who you elect, you can't do this job by yourself. I can't do it without.
And I saw that same thing happen in Oconee County. I've been here so long now. When I came to Athens, their county clerk was basically doing what Christina does now. At some point, they realized the county clerk needs to do just county clerk things. And
You don't have time to do the clerk.
Well, the thing of it is, again, like Brian said, there has to be a job description.
That's fine.
There has to be serious discussion about compensation and a compensation package that's appropriate for a person in that position.
Well, and I can say too, since this conversation is revolving around me, I think it's appropriate for me to give you all my opinion. The topics on this retreat, I would stand there and I would tell you, this is what we're doing. You want an SOP for the water department? This is who we've hired. This is what I've done. Do you want this one or this one? Here's your options. But that is not my job, and I will never say that is not my job. I'm not doing that because that's not who I am. But I can only do so much. I can only make so many decisions. I only have so much authority to make decisions outside the chairman's role. So that there is a difference.
Sure. Well, actually, it's well shown today. The reason you have those 10 packets, that's as far as she can go. She created that packet as detailed as she could without physically making a decision that I couldn't make either. So, you're right. Turk don't do that. I don't know. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Meeting adjourned.
Thank you. Thank you, Stephanie, for spending the whole time in the public.
Yeah, that was
And he would just dictate from his law.
Somebody has to write it,
He
right?
was like county attorney and board commissioner.
Window Bay. Window Dolphin.
Yeah.
Oh.
And
Getting on the side.
I was saying, one day next, maybe, a horse or
I
something.
got a bad opinion when I.
Maybe we'll make it since opportunity to read.
Yeah. I don't know how that is at first, maybe, to move.
Well,
most
another bracket
places,
didn't come and take it.
We knew that.
So disappointed.
Say, when I use you, I just use you as the public then, but then you, but you know.